Things Podcast. Hey, Phantomaniacs, welcome to the newest episode of the Needless Things Podcast, where we talk about toys, movies, music, and all manner of pop culture dorkery. I'm your host, Dave, and I had a great time at MomoCon this past weekend. I didn't know if I would or not, because, as I mentioned, there's not a ton down there that's my thing, but I did. It was awesome. I can't wait to talk about it, but that'll be next week on the Needless Things Podcast with our pal Mike Gordon, who was also down there, but down there the whole weekend, and we're going to share our perspective on this convention. It's not a new convention, but this convention that is certainly new to me, and what we think of it and how it differs from other events that we've attended. But that will be next week. This week, we're going deep into the maw with our pals Chad and Ryan. We are going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, the newest installment in the franchise that shaped many of our lives. And it's a good conversation that couldn't have happened with any three other people. We just had a great time talking, went late into the night, analyzing every little bit of Solo, talking about all the different Easter eggs and call-outs and references, and spoiling the heck out of it. So if you haven't seen Solo yet, stop what you're doing, because we're about to ruin the movie that just hit theaters last week. That was terrible, but that's what I do here. I do dumb things sometimes and just leave them in because I really don't want to have to record another intro. Okay, so anyway, what else is going on? Oh, toy collectors. Every once in a while, I'll throw a little tip out for you guys. If you missed out on any of the sort of latter day releases of the Masters of the Universe Classics line or the DC Universe Classics line, including the Superpowers stuff from MattyCollector.com, hit up your local GameStop, because yesterday we went to the GameStop that's sort of considered the half and half store. I can't remember exactly what their term for it was. I've talked to one of the guys about it, but they have some stores that they've converted to be about half video games and half collectibles. It's like a ThinkGeek GameStop combo, and they had a bunch of Masters of the Universe stuff. I snagged Marlena. Marlena? Is that right? Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've looked at the figure packaging. Like I saw it in the store and I was like, oh, I know Bo needs that, and I grabbed it, and I don't even remember the queen, the double figure that she's an astronaut or a queen, and I got two of them when she came out, and Bo has always been very jealous of that, and she cost a fortune now because she was a Comic-Con exclusive. And they had her sitting right there in GameStop, so I grabbed one. So now Bo Brown will have both the astronaut and the queen on his shelf, just like I do. It's very important that we keep Bo Brown caught up on all the Masters of the Universe releases, because that's his thing. That's his thing, guys. I got for myself a Tuscador, who is gigantic and ridiculous, and who you can see on my Instagram if you're following me as Phantom Turbomerker. And I also picked up Laser Light Skeletor and Laser Lord He-Man. I believe that's correct. I've already tossed the packaging for these because you know how I do. But they're great. You know, if you look at them online, just pictures of them, they look a little goofy, which understandably, yes, that is a selling point for me a lot of times. But they just look a little plain, not that interesting. But in person, the light features work so well and look so cool. And they really are, like, they're different enough to be worth it. He-Man has a great head sculpt. Skeletor looks like an alien, which, I mean, you know, technically I don't usually like, but it's such a different, weird Skeletor that I'm down with it. These are great figures. It's a great set. I'm super stoked that I got it. And then I also picked up, here we go, DC fans. I'm going to give it a try here on the podcast. I picked up from the Superpowers collection Mr. Mixes Pitlick, I think that's right, he's basically, he has 3 points of articulation. He has cut joints at his shoulders and his head's on a ball joint, and that is it. He is in his traditional cross-legged position. He doesn't come with a base to make him float or anything, because this is Matty Collector we're talking about. But he's great. He looks awesome, and I got him for $15. And he was, I want to say he was like the sign-up exclusive figure. So I'm stoked to have him added to my DC Universe Classics shelf. Good finds, good finds. So if there's stuff that you missed that's from the end of the collection, check out your local GameStop. Your local ThinkGeek might also have some stuff, so it'd be worth stopping by there too if you've got a brick-and-mortar ThinkGeek near you. Ours is out at the Mall of Georgia. And there you go. There are some toy tips, cool new toys that you can find in stores. Today's episode, Chad J. Shonk and head of research Ryan Schweck got on Skype with me to talk about Solo, but we also discussed, to open the show, I feel like I have now an ongoing narrative with Star Wars toys because things are changing for me in the way I collect them. And look, you may be like, why is he talking about Star Wars toys here at the beginning of the show like this? But you got to understand, I've been collecting Star Wars toys for essentially 40 years now, and it's a big deal when there's a shift in the way that I collect. So I'll talk about that a little bit. And also, nobody's asking themselves why I'm talking about this. If you're listening to this show, you probably have a pretty good idea of what goes down here. So anyway, I think that's all the intro stuff I've got to talk about right now. I'm going to miss this weekend. If you're in Atlanta, our pals, the Casket Creatures, are having their big Atlanta CD release party for Return to Wolfton, which I will say again is an absolutely incredible album. I played it for Phantom Jr. the other day. We listened to it a couple times through. He digs the heck out of it, was inventing some car dances to go along with the songs, and then played it for Mrs. Troublemaker yesterday while we were in the car, and she was thoroughly impressed. And believe you me, it takes a lot to thoroughly impress that lady. So there are friends, but this album is badass. And if you're in Atlanta, you should get out to that CD release party because it's going to be awesome. I can't make it because I have to work, because that's what I do. My day job, every time I see something online, I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. I'd like to do that. That would be fun. And then my day job grabs me by their throat and says, not so fast, fucko. You don't get to have any fun. So I won't be there, but you guys should go if you're there. And I don't remember where it is right now. It might be at Sweetwater, but anyway, you guys know how to use the internet. Look up Casket Creatures. If you Google Casket Creatures Atlanta CD release party, you'll get this weekend's event, and you may get stuff from like 5 years ago from other CD release parties. But you know how to sort through that stuff. Put a 2018 in there, you'll find it, right? Right. And if you can't make it to that CD release party, you should still get online and get yourself a copy of Return to Wolfton, because it is legit badass rock and roll that I love. I've listened to quite a few. Matter of fact, and this is purely honest, I believe I've listened to that album more times now than any album I've bought in at least the last 2 years. I think. Because, when you were a kid, you'd buy an album and you'd just leave it in the CD, the tape deck or the CD player or the Walkman or whatever the case may be. You just leave it in there for like weeks and just listen to it over and over and over again. And I just don't do that anymore. But with this one, it stayed in, because I had the CD first and stayed in the dash for a while. And now it's on my flash drive and it's in the rotation. So anyway, I love that album. You guys should check it out. And now you should check out me, Chad, and head of research Ryan talking about Solo, spoiling Solo, a Star Wars story. It is time for the all-stars of the Needless Things Irregulars to talk about Star Wars, and of course we are talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. Unfortunately, we don't have a big giant crew together like we did for The Last Jedi, and we are not live and in person, but that is because we could not do this show without our pal from the left coast, Chad J. Shonk. Welcome back via Skype.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm tired. I'm running on 2 hours of sleep and 12 hours of work, but we're going to get through this because I have two of the very best in the business here with me. And, of course, the other of that duo would be our head of research, Ryan Schweck. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Strap in, everybody. We're getting extended universe nerdy tonight.
We're going deep as fuck.
Yeah,
Yep.
all three of us are big-time, I guess, rather than extended universe, it would be now Legends nerds.
Or just the universe. Just the universe.
Yeah, really, everything.
World.
Although, Chad, I think you're much more up. Well, I don't know. Both of you guys might be pretty well read on the newer stuff.
Yeah,
I've
I'm
read all
behind
the
a
new
little
stuff.
I've read a few of the new books. Didn't sit right with me, and I've sort of hit a block with those. And there are a couple I've loved. The Leia stuff I've really enjoyed.
Claudia Gray books are great.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And I've heard a couple others that I need to check out, but overall, for me, I have not gotten as sucked into that side of things as I was in the old expanded universe. So
Yeah, it's hard to start over sometimes.
I really enjoyed reading Last Shot as kind of a primer to get me ready for
Yeah,
Han and
I haven't
Data.
finished it yet because life got in the way. I broke my foot and shit. So, life got in the way of me finishing Last Shot, so I haven't got there, but I will.
I
What
ended up
is-
with,
what is Last Shot? Tell us a little bit about it. Is that like a prequel to this or something?
No, kind of, yeah. It mentions parts, so without giving away too much of the book away, it follows about, 3 different
It's like 3
timelines?
different times. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you follow Han and Lando as they kind of, are chasing after this MacGuffin. And,
After, about 3 years after Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
yeah.
In the
Yeah.
current story, because Ben is 2, and he's conceived on Endor, so it's about 3 years. And
Who wrote it?
I don't have it with me. I'm not
wow,
sure.
Oh, okay. That's
totally blanking on it. It's just
Star
a new,
Wars guy.
It's a new. It's a new name to the.
Yeah.
It's a new name to the Daniel Jose Older.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that name at all. And I will say, I think I got 3 chapters into Phasma and had to drop out, but I have heard that the audiobook version is far superior, so I might give that one a shot.
I'm sorry. What character is that?
That would be Phasma.
I've heard of this character, but I have yet to see tale of her being anything interesting. So anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, we're going to talk about Solo. Before we get deep into Han himself, I want to talk a little bit about the toys because a few weeks ago on Needless Things, I put up a post kind of with where I'm at with Star Wars toys right now. To quickly recap, I was not going to get into the Black Series because, to me, a Star Wars toy line has to have vehicles. However, I never imagined that the smaller scale toys would essentially abandon quality vehicles. So
Yeah.
I'm stuck with the 3 3/4 inch not representing the characters from the movies very well at all, and the 6-inch not having vehicles, except of course for the upcoming Enfys Nest with a swoop, which we're getting a legit
Oh, really?
in canon swoop bike. And I loved the old swoop toy from Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these in the movie looked fantastic, and I'm super stoked. And I still cannot consider myself all in on the 6-inch Black Series, but I've gotten to a point where I've kind of realized if I want the characters from the movies, that's where I'm going to have to go.
Yeah. Well, and they've adopted that facial printing that Marvel Legends has been using, and now it's moving over to Star Wars more and more.
It looks
and the
a
new
whole lot better on Star Wars than it does on Marvel Legends.
It does sometimes. Yeah.
Like
there's
that.
Legends.
That new Thor from Infinity War is rough, but the Lando is gorgeous.
Tarkin looks unreal.
Urban Erlenbergen looks really, really good. And really, even though he doesn't use the same type of scan, that Target exclusive Chewbacca is amazing.
He's great.
That's one of that was probably my favorite Chewbacca figure. He looks incredible. So anyway,
I'm not really a toy collector.
Yeah.
But the only thing I do buy are the 6-inch Black Series, and only selectively.
Yes.
And I'm upset because I had a chance to buy a Kira and I didn't, because I didn't think I'd want one. Now I want one. And now she's like $35.
She'll be around. They're not going to have another Rey situation. She just happened to be in the second wave.
Is that what happened? Yeah, because I can't find a Kira for like a decent price, and I'm like, now I kind of want one.
Yeah,
because I kind of want to, because I'm waiting for the Kira comic or movie or something at some point.
She hasn't even hit mass market yet, so don't sweat it. You'll see tons. But of her.
I picked up Young Han, I picked up Young Lando, and they look cool. I regret not collecting these longer because I have old Force Awakens Han, and I have young Han, but I don't have like classic Han.
Well, so. here's the thing: is now that they're
going to have to re-release.
Yeah, they're going to have to go back and re-release the older figures because the faces are, and they don't even go together. Honestly,
no.
Okay.
The new ones are so much better. So I would expect to see some box sets. I would expect to see some updates. Supposedly Bespin Han, which I know we discussed this at some point. But I prefer Long Jacket Han for some just as a remainder of my childhood. But
and it's Empire, which is the best. So I kind of want all the characters from this movie,
dude. Right? Seriously.
So. Yeah.
And that was
I'll
kind
take
of
a Woody Harrelson. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, they're making him. They're making him. They're making Thandie Newton.
Okay.
And
who was that?
Thandie Newton. Val.
No, I know. Was commenting on how brief her role was.
Which we'll discuss how we feel about that too.
Yeah.
And I think that because Hasbro, if you follow Hasbro Pulse on Instagram, they tease a lot of stuff, put up a lot of new product images, and they put up a picture that was a grid of all of the Solo figures we know we're getting and one blacked out figure. And my hope is that the blacked out figure is, and by the way, spoilers for those of you who maybe haven't seen the movie but decided to listen to this.
Stop. Don't.
Yeah, we're spoiling the crap out of this movie, so go see it first.
The movie needs your money, and I wouldn't normally say that.
Yeah,
but the movie needs your money.
Go see the movie. It's very, very good. It's very fun. But here we go, spoiler land. My hope is that the one blacked out figure is a Darth Maul.
Darth Maul. Bring back the 90s.
With his robo legs.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. It's one of my favorite things in the movie, and I also think one of the biggest mistakes.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Let's say from a pure toy perspective, too, Maul is one of the early figures in the Black Series.
Yes.
And goes for a lot of money right now because a lot of people didn't get him. So I'm glad they're going to do another one of him.
Yeah, I would love to see Old Man Robo Legs Maul with the Inquisitor saber. Holy shit. All right. We got to segue over. Ryan, any other thoughts about the toy line and what they're doing?
I really hope that Enfys, I hope her mask comes off. It doesn't look like it, but I'm going to be kind of disappointed if
anything, I think it would have to be an alternate head because I don't know that you could fit her hair under that mask.
Yeah.
But the little flaps hanging down from her legs look a little awkward.
Yeah, what figure has those too? That's weird. One of the Rey figures has those little flaps hanging down, and they don't hang right.
Yeah,
the original Rey I think is like that. Has kind of like her scavenger outfit.
That's okay. I'm sure they'll do an alternate Enfys nest later on with better soft goods and a removable helmet or whatever, and you'll have to buy that one too. All right, so
sure. I kind of will. That's the problem.
Exactly. So to segue into the movie itself, before we discuss the movie, I want to talk about how we felt about it going in. I'll go ahead and just briefly say I thought everything about the movie looked absolutely awesome, but I was not sure about... Oh, gosh, now I want to actually get his name right.
Okay, let's settle on a pronunciation.
Aiden Ehrenreich?
Is it Alden?
Alden Ehrenreich.
Right.
Okay, so Alden Ehrenreich.
Let's call him Alden. Let's call him Alden.
Let's say Alden.
Yep.
Alden, even though I loved him in Oh, shoot.
Hail Caesar.
Hail Caesar. And in Hail Caesar saw the spark of what could be a great Han Solo. Prior to seeing this movie, I really wasn't sure because in the trailers, what they used of him in the trailers didn't do much to impress. However, and I think I told both of you guys this, I felt like within 20 minutes of seeing him on screen, nobody would care how much he looked or acted like Harrison Ford, that we would be into it and that he would be fun. And,
as long as he wasn't awful.
Yes, he would be fun and he would be a good Han. But everything else about the movie just absolutely tickled every fancy I had for a Han Solo movie. So I despite myself, I was very, very excited about this movie. Ryan, how are you feeling going into it?
I was kind of mixed. I think the voice threw me off a lot in that first preview, and I just couldn't make that fit with Harrison Ford, and I probably honestly was trying too hard, even in the first 10 minutes of the movie, kind of reconciling the two together. But once I let that go, I enjoyed it much more. I think obviously all the troubles that the production have, the fact they weren't showing trailers, like all of it just led to this sense of this may not be very good. But I mean, that second trailer was so good. Like, I obviously was excited to see it.
Chad, what about you?
I think I'm on record probably on this very podcast 3-4 years ago saying I didn't think this movie should happen. But simply because of that, because of living in the shadow of a unique movie star. Harrison Ford is on the level of a Cary Grant, a Katharine Hepburn, a Tom Cruise. Like, there's never going to be another one. And so you can't go into this movie comparing the two because it's just literally not fair. No one can be Harrison Ford, and so it's not fair. So but it's a Star Wars movie, so I'm going to want to see it. And so as footage came out, the first trailer, I was like, oh, okay. And then, like Ryan said, the second trailer, a lot better. I did something I normally don't do or haven't done with the last few films is I actually watched some of the TV spots, and I follow Star Wars on Instagram, and I actually watched some of the little clips they put up with sound to acclimate myself to the idea that this was going to be Han. Like, I wanted to go into the movie already okay with it, right? Because I didn't think it was going to be fair to the film. Again, just like you said, the production problems. Ron Howard is a filmmaker of great competence, but he never rises above the material put in front of him. His best films are the best scripts that he has. Right. And he's only as good as the material you give him. He doesn't elevate in a way that a Spielberg can or Scorsese or one of the greats can. He's a worker, right? He's a workman. He does the job put in front of him. So to me, all the weight was going to be on the Kasdan and Son, right? And but against my better judgment, I got psyched. I got against my better judgment, I got excited. And funny enough, the line that did it for me is not in the movie.
Oh, really? What was that?
There's a moment in the second trailer where Han and Chewie are in the Falcon, and Chewie growls something, and Han says, "Yeah, what do you know?"
Yeah.
But the way he does it is he turns away, like towards the console, in such a Han Solo move. It was exactly like, it was the moment where I was like, fucking Han right there. And it was so funny to me, like it wasn't in the movie. But that was the moment where I was like, oh, I can kind of see it. And then the moment that got me super psyched was threefold. It was hearing Lando yell Han.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then flipping Han a blaster. And then Han grabbing the blaster and putting up in a fucking classic Han Solo pose. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's what I want. You got me. I'm done. I'm ready. Let's
and you're
go.
Right. Those were signs of, oh, they know what we want.
Yes.
Like they get it. They want to please us. They're peacocking right now.
they knew there were doubts, and
sure.
And you're right. Them not showing trailers till like very close to the thing was scary, and also I think probably ended up being slightly damaging to them. The secrecy around it, the fact that it sounds like Ron Howard, 70% of this movie at least is what Ron Howard shot, not what Lord and Taylor shot.
Well, what's funny to me,
Lord and Miller shot.
And I'm glad you brought up Lord and Miller because I completely glossed over them. Early on, I was not happy about this at all because as much as I love the Lego Movie, I had not seen anything from Lord and Miller to suggest that they were going to fit into what I think of. And I'll say up front here for anybody listening, you got to understand when I watch Star Wars movies, I'm coming at them from my personal perspective of what I think Star Wars should be. And there's no way around that because I'm me. And I didn't see any
can I
way...
say something real quick?
Yes,
can I say
absolutely.
something real fast?
Absolutely.
Hi, Dave.
Hi,
I've never
Chad.
done that before in the podcast. Go ahead.
Oh, right. Yeah, you got the name out. As a matter of fact, I think even last time you might have even called me Phantom, even though it
I was
after.
so mad on the Last Jedi podcast. The whole time I forgot to call you Dave.
So I did not see Lord and Miller producing a Star Wars movie that I was going to like. So I was maybe one of the few people that was delighted to find out. And look, those guys aren't hurting for work. When we talk about them being fired from this job, this is not the end of their Hollywood career.
And we're not reveling in their pain.
No,
either.
no,
They're-
not at all. And look, I'm honestly bummed out for them because I'm sure they wanted to make a Star Wars movie as much as anybody else did, and I'm sure it was embarrassing and painful for them to lose this. But at the same time, I didn't see them fitting, and when I heard they were gone and that they were bringing on Ron Howard, who, as you said, is... he is competent, and he rises to, but not above, the material he's given. And I felt like, with what we've seen thus far from Kathleen Kennedy, she has a vision. Sometimes I think she has a little more faith in some creators than she does in others, but she took a strong hand in Rogue One, and I was very pleased with the result. And so... I felt kind of here like, well, we've already seen one time where they had massive creative shakeups during a movie, and it turned out to be, I don't know what the original would have been, but the finished product I was very, very happy with.
It is interesting that the two films with the most troubled productions are my two favorites of the Disney films so
Yes,
far.
I am on board with you, absolutely. But it's also interesting that they're the two films that come from the era that is closest to our hearts.
That's true, but it's also probably the era that's closest to the filmmakers' hearts as well.
Yeah, it's a little easier to get a tone when you know what the tone is.
I mean, Gary Whitta, who, wrote the early drafts of Rogue One and kind of shaped the sculpt of it. I mean, he writes on Rebels. He's a nerd, like he's writing from the point of view of a fan, just having a good time in his favorite toy box, So
I think we've covered kind of how we felt going in.
Yeah, I was excited, but was ready to be disappointed.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I was excited, but I really didn't know. I thought it was entirely possible because I have been disappointed a few times lately.
Yeah.
And I was ready to have another one that I was going to have to an extent write off, and that's not what happened at all. So let's talk about the movie itself. And my first comment, my first note that I have here is fine with the dice. They fleshed out, because the dice were sort of an odd part of Last Jedi, but I didn't... people that got worked up about them, I was like, well, whatever. Who cares? It's a thing. They're using it as
Easter egg from a one shot in A New Hope. Right?
Yeah, it's fine. I have no problem with it. And I actually dug that they retroactively gave all of that more substance in a way that, to me, didn't feel particularly heavy-handed in this movie. And they had the benefit of knowing that those dice were going to be an important element in what was chronologically a future story, but it worked for me. I dug it. It was fine. Are you guys okay with the little dice narrative in this thing?
Yeah, I definitely agree, and it makes that scene where Luke gives them to Leia as kind of his goodbye too, kind of mirrors where Han and Cara gave him back and forth. Yeah, it adds a lot more weight to the dice, which makes them a little more interesting. And
Yeah.
Makes
No, I
something
mean,
that movie worth a shit.
and it comes from a. All right, let's not get down that hole. I think that what it did also was, I mean, the dice didn't come from nowhere,
Yes.
right? They are from the original film. There are dice hanging in the Falcon and a couple of shots, right, in the cockpit. They didn't make it up out of whole cloth. They were always considered a little tiny little Easter egg that no one gave a shit about. And what a lot of these movies are doing, kind of like the empty chair next to Tarkin in the Death Star, is finding little tiny things in the original movies and retconning them and backtracking them, right? So it's like, why would Han have a pair of dice hanging up on the Falcon?
Yeah.
They were never
Now,
too...
and I do
but-
like they seem to be being careful about it because the prequels
Yes.
tried that stuff too, and
Yes.
we all know how that ended up.
Yeah, no, they're finding just little things, right? Little things
Yeah.
to kind of help you explain the character a little more. And I thought it was cute.
They're little
it worked.
things that 20 years from now are going to feel like a narrative flow.
Right.
Yes, or even do now. I mean,
They do now.
If you watch them chronologically now, the dice will feel a lot more organic, right?
Yeah,
when you
absolutely.
get to Jedi, you'll go like, "Oh, look, Han's dice."
But over the course of time, as new generations view these movies,
Yes.
they're just going to be part of the big story.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, no, and they are. And I thought it was a completely fine through line. They didn't put too much import on it. There was never a scene where he was like dropped his dice and was trying to find them.
Yeah. Or
They're never
dove
referred to verbally.
back through a closing door to grab his dice.
Right, yeah, Indiana Jones style. Like,
Right.
They're never actually referred to verbally.
Right, yeah, it's all visual.
They're only a visual symbol that is, that he hangs up in the rearview mirror of the speeder, and then he gives her, and then she gives back to him, and then he hangs up in the Falcon. No one ever mentions them. He doesn't call them his lucky dice. He doesn't say what they mean to him. They could have been his dad's. We have no idea what they are. We have, as far as story-wise, we don't know where they came from. There's no backstory of like, I was playing in a poker. I was playing craps out back, and these were my like. There's no backstory to them.
Yeah, they're just there.
They're just there, and so I like that there's no monologue about them.
Which is very Star Wars.
Yes,
Star
it is.
Wars is a lot of really cool set dressing that nobody has to pick up and explain.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't have to explain it.
Now you mentioned
just,
Han's dad. Real quick,
Yeah.
I want to talk about. There are two things that I'm sure one or both of you can reconcile. Early in the movie, we find out where Solo comes from. I have no problem with that. I don't care. It's fine. Whatever.
I had a little problem with it only because it means they speak Italian in space. But go ahead.
Well, you know what though, that's fine. Basic can incorporate as many Terran languages as it wants to. It doesn't
Sure.
matter.
It was just kind of funny to me. Where it's like Han Solo. I'm like, what? Did you take Italian in college? What's going on?
He took it at the Imperial Community College.
Yeah,
It's in your
Solo
fake-
means alone in Star Wars world too. Like, come
Sure,
on,
why
yeah,
not?
that was it was a little, but it was fine. It was fine.
So we get that, but then later on, he talks about his father who worked in the shipbuilding yards and who wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah,
What is... it's just interesting to me that initially he's nobody from nowhere, and I guess maybe he's just telling the Imperial that. What did you guys make of those two things?
well, he also followed up with the fact that he didn't get along with his dad. So, because he said, and I thought that was actually really touching, that the idea that Han's dad was a blue collar worker, that his dad built ships, which would be part of Han's fascination with them growing up.
As opposed to being
they're-
secret royalty.
Right, exactly. But he doesn't say anything nice about him.
Right.
And him and Lando share the moment about really not liking their dads because Star Wars. And so, you can't have a good dad in a Star Wars movie.
Well, and that story...
That's why Jesse L. Martin will never be in a Star Wars movie.
That story did kind of, like, that got me a little closer to the Solo character. That respect that he had for his dad, and obvious, it wasn't, he was a rotten bastard. It was
but they didn't get along.
Right, exactly, and
I think when Han tells the officer, "I don't have any people," part one, he doesn't want to tell him his real name,
right?
Because He's on the run already, right? You know, and at the same time, he doesn't have people still. I mean, the implication is his parents are probably long gone.
Yes.
Right? He's a street rat. I mean, there's no, you know, I want to get into the depiction of Corellia because that's one thing that varies wildly from the depiction in the comics.
Yeah.
Or in the expanded universe.
But also varies wildly from anything we've seen on the screen.
No, I liked it. It's just Corellia was always, in the expanded universe, was kind of their analog for Earth.
Yeah.
You know, it was much closer to Earth. But the, I just think, I think it was, no, he doesn't have people anymore. You know,
although it could have been
love that we never heard his real last name.
Yeah, we don't need to know ever.
That would have been bad.
We witnessed the beginning of Han Solo, and that's just fine. We only saw a little tiny bit of Corellia, so that could have just been like the Detroit of Corellia.
Yeah. It could have been. It could have.
I do like how the new backstory with the parents and the, you know, they're just people that are staying there and you dream of going to being a pilot. It ties him to Luke a lot more and kind of makes more sense of why he kind of takes a shine to Luke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Luke is him years ago.
Because Han's just another guy they just wanted to get off his shitty homeworld.
Yep. Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. That's really nice. That's a good connecting point.
Well, and a lot of the arc of this movie, and we'll get into it, is the guy that we end up with in this movie is not the guy we meet in A New Hope. It's the guy that's going to become that guy.
Which is fine because
that's what I love. This is the first step, and what it kind of makes the original trilogy about, for Han's perspective, is him coming back to this guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is him becoming this, as Kira tells him in the movie, the good guy that he is. And he ends up becoming that again. You know, after a decade of being a pirate or whatever.
And I'm sure you guys will agree, but I would be happy to see the stories of any of these characters continue on.
Yep.
I'm hoping to read about the Kira years between when she left, because she drops some hints in there that are pretty ominous.
Terrace. Oh wait. All right, Ryan. No. You gotta say it. Terrace. What?
Oh, it's It's Teras Kasi, right?
Kasi. I think that's how she says it too.
Teras Kasi.
Yeah.
That's when she said that. That's one of, and I know there have been over the last few years with Disney Star Wars. There have been tons of awesome old expanded universe things that have happened.
But I got a list for this one.
That one's one of the ones that really grabbed me because that is a holy shit. These guys aren't playing around with their references.
As a callback to a really shitty video game.
21 years ago.
That comes up, though, in the novelization of Last Jedi.
Oh, does it?
Specifically say that the elite Praetorian Guard are trained in it.
Oh,
and that's how they fight. Yeah.
Well, and that's what leads me to, and why we have all these kind of in-universe references, is what I've talked about before, what I like that they're doing, at least on some level, especially in these Star Wars stories, I think, is keeping the DNA of the world while telling different stories in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? There's no need to rename, this is the first time, I know in Force Awakens they mention a Corellian YT freighter, but this is the first time they call it a YT 1300 freighter.
Yeah.
And again, they could have changed that. No one would have cared outside of Star Wars nerds, but why change it? They've kept the DNA. Han doesn't say his dad built ships. He says he built ships for the CEC, the Corellian Engineering Corporation, which is a complete expanded universe acronym, right? Yep.
Well,
like it's full of it all the way through.
And I feel like too,
the DNA of it while telling different stories.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, we took it from you, but we're going to give it back piece by piece, and
when it makes sense.
We're going to use the stuff that makes sense to build the world. Yeah. We just have different tales that we want to tell or different angles. But if the Imperials, of course, they have a security bureau, so why not call it the ISB? Of course, there's going to be crime syndicates. Why not call one of them the Black Sun?
And I love the I don't know that humility is the right word. Maybe it's it's the egolessness of that act of saying we don't have to come in here and break everything and make our own stuff. We recognize that creators came before us and their shit was good. So when we need a piece from here or from there, we're going to use what came before when it makes sense. I think there's a tremendous amount of respect.
I love the image of Lawrence Kasdan with Final Draft screenwriting software on one screen and Wikipedia.
And I don't doubt it.
All I'll say to finish that is just insert a snide comment about The Last Jedi after what you just said about respecting what came before. You know what, you're feeling it. Just feel free to...
Yeah, I know. I've heard them all. I don't disagree with them. I still like the movie. Move on.
We will move on. Actually, what I want to move on to... Oh, Ryan, have you got a...
If we're still on Corellia, can we talk about example number one of the incompetence of the Empire? Like, so you're telling me you get through the gate, and then it's like, all right, he's gone, guys.
No, they're still looking for him. That's why he signs up.
But you know what? Honestly, though,
open the door and just grab him. He's right there.
But here's the thing: it really does kind of make sense to what we know of Imperial bureaucracy. I can totally buy that they have this checkpoint established, and that they have so much faith in their own infallibility that beyond that checkpoint, they would have nothing in place.
That's true.
Because they would just believe we're the Empire. We have this set, just like the TSA. The TSA, do you know that 80% of simulated terrorist attempts make it through the TSA? I totally believe that the Empire...
Well, I'm on a plane in 3 weeks, so thank you very much.
And you figure, too, the Empire's been around for, 7 years at this point, roughly, is what people have kind of figured. It hasn't been too many years, so this is like a new Empire. So, I mean, maybe that guy's like somebody's uncle who just randomly got their job.
I think you're thinking about it too much. In the same way that the heroes have plot armor, where stormtroopers can't hit them, but they can hit stormtroopers, he has plot camouflage.
Yeah.
And the fact is, he can just hide in a very obvious place.
He can hide in front of a crate.
Because he's the hero.
That's right.
Just, like whenever anyone wants to argue with me about stormtrooper accuracy, I said if they're shooting at someone without a name, they're real good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if they're shooting with someone whose name is in like the top 10 of the credits, yeah, they miss. That's just how it works, right? It's
Absolutely.
Like Droid, right? We talked about this. If your Droid is a lead character, and we'll get into Droid, one of my big problems with this movie. When we talk about if a Droid is one of our lead characters, they are sentient, and when they are not, they're toasters.
Which is, you're absolutely right. Because
you just go with it. R2 and 3PO have a soul.
The Robot Rebellion was really, really weird, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
What I want to get to next, what is one of you guys, Chad, we'll go with Chad. What's your first note? Who's clanking? Ryan, are you clanking?
That's
my first notes are nitpicks, so I'll skip those for now so we get to nitpicks.
Okay.
I'll go to my first nitpick. The title card says it is a lawless time. I don't consider the era of the Empire a lawless time. I mean, unless they specifically mean Corellia, but it doesn't say that. They just say it is a lawless time, and I'm like, that the whole point of the Empire was law and order. But okay.
That's interesting, though. Let's stop and look at that for a second, because the phrasing is terrible, but I think the inference is that the grasp of the Empire on the galaxy has led to, because the whole thing is about the fringe, the smugglers, the criminal element, yes. And I think the point of that line is that the Empire's grasp has led to even more criminal activity, but they just didn't say it very gracefully, because I don't know how you would say that very gracefully.
No, I agree. It just felt, I was like, the New Order? Come on. It was a little bit. I think my first note is in capital letters, VCX 100, 5 exclamation points. Because when Han's gambling with Lando for the first time, Han lies and says he has a ship and it's the VCX 100, that's the model of the Ghost.
Yeah, it is. I for sure didn't catch that.
So that was exciting, and that's when I was like, all right, the Kasdan boys did some research. And and that was the moment that gave me. I mean, I was already enjoying it, but it gave me kind of real comfort. Actually, even earlier on, when they're on Corellia and they're running, he says Coronet Spaceport.
Yes.
Coronet is the capital of Corellia in the books and on the online role-playing game and in comics, but they kept it because why not? But it was still like, oh, okay. But I think my first real kind of nitpicky nerdy note is just like, all right, I'm on board with this guy. You know, like it. Actually, no. My first note is sorry. The movie. Did you guys see it in 3D?
No.
Okay, because it is a dark film visually.
I have seen a lot of that, and I don't want us to respond to like online comments and stuff.
Well, no, I didn't see it in 3D.
I have seen that a lot, that it was dark, and that was not my experience.
Yeah, see, to me, I think the film, just generally the lighting is just darker, and that doesn't bother me. But I went and saw Spider-Man Homecoming back last time I was in Atlanta, and I saw it in 3D, and the projection at the shitty Snellville theater I went to. Yeah, I'll call you out. Whichever one it is.
Is it
Snellville.
The AMC Classic?
No, it's like the Carmichael or whatever one.
Well, no, I know which
Oaks.
theater you're talking about. It used to be a Carmike. Now it's an AMC Classic, which means it's not fancy.
All I know is they played a 3D movie where I think they turned the bulb down instead of up. And the last 20 minutes of Homecoming are a fight on a plane at night.
Yeah.
And my brother and I had to take our glasses off to see what was happening. Even though it was blurry, it was still easier to tell what was happening than watching it in the dark. So I was curious watching it, like how rough the 3D could be on this movie, because it's a darker film. Like, it doesn't pop, and that's intentional. But it just felt like if you put that in 3D, like, I don't know if you could see it unless you're at the right theater, because a lot of theaters don't turn up the brightness when they run a 3D movie.
That's interesting. I specifically didn't see it in 3D because I had read a lot of people talking about how dark it was.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any issue. I thought the beginning on Corellia was very dark, but obviously it was intended to be. But
no, I don't mean it as a bad thing.
Sure.
Just curious how it translated to 3D is all. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. Ryan,
if people are complaining about that, then that actually would bear that out.
Yeah, I've seen
my fears of that. So yeah, okay, yeah. Go ahead. I'll have more later. Ryan, what was your first thing?
I think the first thing that really popped out at me, thinking in the movie, was in his first fight when he's an infantry soldier in the Empire, thinking, why couldn't the prequels have been this? Can you imagine that scene, that kind of war-looking Star Wars scene, and then a Jedi comes running through with a lightsaber? Right. It would have been unbelievable.
Well, I agree from a purely from the way they filmed it perspective, but I still and maybe we'll do a prequels episode at some point in the future. But my feeling on the prequels is part of the idea there was to show us just how extravagant and opulent and excessive and rich everything was, how corrupt the old Republic had become. It was like this big, fat, beautiful fruit that was about to just burst and rot. Yeah. So all of the shininess and all of the color and everything in the prequels, personally, this is me, I feel like was very intentional.
Oh, it absolutely was.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I'm thinking specifically when the Clone Wars start. I kept thinking of, the one scene when they're on Geonosis, and the sand's all flying around and the way it's shot. If it had been more shot like that, I think we would have seen a lot different movie.
Are you talking?
The only argument I would make against that quickly is that formalistically that doesn't fit into those films. It can work in this movie.
We did get that on Kashyyyk.
It doesn't have to worry about it.
We did get that on Kashyyyk, though.
A little bit, but not this kind of handheld, you don't know where you are type of thing. I was a little off-put, however, in that scene by the Imperial uniforms. They didn't seem very familiar to me.
I didn't like they could take the masks off.
That was
not how
weird.
the Empire rolls.
Well, you know what? It wouldn't have bothered me if we had ever seen it before.
Right.
But it did feel, and it looked cool. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, there are Imperial Army that aren't stormtroopers. That is for sure.
Well, and you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, look at your AT-AT driver that has basically that helmet and those goggles. It really
does.
You know what? I bet if you sat down and looked through like one of the visual dictionaries or something, you could find pieces of all of that Mud Trooper garb.
But it was also very dark, and they were covered with mud, so it was harder for me to make it out. So the iconography didn't hit me.
Yeah.
You know, like I wanted to, you know, like I was like, Han's an Imperial soldier, like that's crazy. But I didn't identify him as that visually.
At the same time, I think they wanted to make the point that he was an Imperial soldier, but he was the bottom of the barrel. Like he doesn't even rate, because you got to think about it. The stormtroopers, as much fun as we make of them, they are the elite of the Imperial Army. There are guys below stormtroopers like that haven't made it to stormtrooper yet. We just haven't really seen them.
Yeah,
which
we've
is
seen them
weird.
Like, you know, Death Star guards, Death Star troopers,
right.
That.
And it's weird that we haven't seen these guys before. But at the same time, when narratively have we seen a situation where these guys would show up?
It's true.
No, that's true.
Not really. So
no, that's true.
Because we've mostly seen the Empire, at least on land battles, and mostly ceremonial on the Death Star and all that stuff.
When they're trying to show out and be like, "Look at us, we're the Empire bitches."
Well, my other question about that scene was it takes place on Mimban, which is a pre-established planet.
Tell us about Mimban.
I don't know much about Mimban. I'm going to be honest with you.
You know where Mimban comes from, though.
It was originally the name of Dagobah?
No, Mimban is from Splinter of the Mind's Eye. It's
you're right.
Planet that Luke and Leia crash on when they're looking for, what is it, crystal? The Kyber crystal.
Kyber crystal.
The Kybers.
Yes.
In their old definition of the Kyber crystal.
Exactly. Because obviously that not only is that no longer canon, it was no longer canon by the time Empire Strikes Back came out.
No,
but again,
that is so weird as fuck.
But again, and it's also Alan Dean Foster, who I love. So that
it was also mentioned on the Clone Wars, I think, as well.
Yeah. They did a little tribute to that on the Clone Wars. So it's a beloved piece of discarded mythology.
Yeah. It was just weird. I was unclear as to who they were fighting.
Yeah, I don't know what was
the natives.
And you know what? Even that, though, I think may have been somewhat intentional to give it that sort of like Vietnam-y, what are we doing here feel. Because Han even talks about, you know, what are we even doing here? It sounds like we're the bad guys.
Yeah, we're the invaders.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean,
just is very kind of like, don't tread on me. And
let's talk real quick. This movie was packed with plot. Like, they told a lot of story. Brian Michael Bendis would have taken 5 years to tell this story in a comic book.
It does have a lot of story, and you know, we'll get to it, but one of my critiques of the film is I actually don't think the screenplay is particularly inspired, and that's one of my big knocks against it. I think it's a fairly formulaic screenplay.
Oh, sure.
I don't mean to knock that, but like there's nothing that like if you took the Star Wars out of it, it would just be an action movie. Like it didn't. I don't think this like spoilers. If your mentor tells you don't trust anyone, there will be a scene where your mentor says, "I told you not to trust anyone."
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's riddled with kind of like crime movie cliches,
and I think,
which is fine.
I think from the start we all knew Kira was going to betray him. Like, which granted, it's up in the air whether she really betrayed him or not. But
I think she did.
I think she did it, and she didn't.
We'll get to that. So let's move on to move through our notes.
So Mimban, and we got to talk to Mimban because that's where he meets.
Yes,
Chewie.
where he meets Beckett
and Chewie.
And Chewie. It's so funny to me because the scene with Chewie is, you know, one, it's somewhat of a callback to the Rancor scene, but it's also very reminiscent of Ash and the Pit Witch from Army of
I
Darkness.
thought about Evil Dead immediately.
Like both of the
immediately.
When he first got dropped in there, I was thinking the Rancor, but then when Chewie started making all the noises, it was very effective. But we it's Chewie. You just know it is. But it was still, if let's say you took somebody who'd never seen anything of Star Wars, didn't know what was happening, and that scene was very effective at what it was trying to do, because it was basically Ash and the Pit Witch. I loved it.
Let's also remember, this is a scene that is not overriding the expanded universe, because this is a moment that has never once been dramatized.
Right. It's never
it has been
laid out.
Alluded to, but it has never been played out. It has never been, and the illusions have always been a little different. Han was an officer, and Chewie was a slave, and he stood up to a superior officer. That was, I think, some of the original backstory of it. But again, Lucas was very clear over time that was never to be dramatized.
Yes.
And so to have it, I liked this. I thought it was fine. It wasn't. It also reminded me a little bit of Han and Chewie in a cell at Jabba's. It reminded me, just the idea of like these two guys who are going to be. Although one nit I do have to pick is there's no mention of a life debt.
See, I'm happy they didn't.
Yeah,
really?
I'm okay with that, because how corny would it have come off if they had been talking and Chewie had gone, rah, 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 and Han had been like, life debt? What does that mean? Rah, 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 rah. Oh, that
the way
means
I'm going to justify it is
didn't-
that he actually does say it. He says it to the Wookiees when they're leaving Kessel. That's what Chewie tells the Wookiees.
That's what Chewie tells the Wookiees.
At Kessel.
That's fine, but we don't...
That I have to go with him. He saved my life.
I like to think he says, "Tell Lumpy I'm okay." And then he goes,
Yes.
Well, Lumpy's canon now.
Wait,
isn't
are
he?
you saying all Wookiees know each other? Because that's racist as fuck.
No, Lumpy's canon now, right?
Lumpy is canon.
Lumpy
I'm just
is
saying
canon.
Random
Yeah.
dudes on Kessel doesn't mean they know Lumpy.
Look, everybody knows Lumpy.
Yeah, come on.
That's true.
I will say one thing with Han too. I was glad that they kind of got rid of. I noticed at first I was like, oh, he's not going to be the pilot in the Empire, but then it makes a lot more sense, because if he become the pilot, he would have been probably a little happier and more likely to stay. So there were some definite smart choices in there.
Yeah, instead
Well, he had tried, but he got bounced out, and
well, and also that goes along with the overarching theme of the movie, and it's very interesting because obviously, he adopts the name Han Solo. The movie is called Solo, but and yes, he has his pal Chewie, but the whole point of this movie is why this guy doesn't play well with others, doesn't group himself with other people. Like, it's all explaining how he ends up on the path that leads to A New Hope.
This movie is literally Han learning that he has to shoot first.
Yes. Which I loved, by the way.
Which is the whole movie. It's learning that he has to shoot. It reminded me a lot of Casino Royale.
Yeah, for
the Daniel
sure.
Craig version, not the
sure.
Woody Allen version. Where, like, at the end he learns, fuck it, I can't trust anybody. I can't fall in love. Now I'm the hard-ass secret agent that everybody knows and loves, since that movie's an origin story, right? Or knows and is problematic with.
Now here's a question while we're on the Han shoots first thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that change him not shooting first in the cantina in the special edition?
Man,
does it make more sense now that he doesn't shoot first, because he's evolving and we're getting towards, all right.
He's not evolving yet, though.
No, I still think he should shoot Greedo first.
Again, I'd like to point this out.
You meant that I didn't believe in?
Han doesn't shoot first. Han shoots only.
That's true.
Yes.
In the original, only Han fired. But yes, because part of my thesis of the film, that we'll get to, is the fact that that moment at the end where he shoots him is the beginning of him becoming that guy who doesn't give a fuck anymore.
Yes.
In A New Hope. And so I think he is still that guy at that point, but he learns that lesson. Greedo's got a gun on him.
Yeah.
And they're talking shit. And flash back to Beckett has a gun, and Beckett makes one move, and Han goes, nope, bam. Right? Let's not give him a chance. No quick draw. Bam. Shoot him before they shoot you.
I think if, and this likely won't happen, but I think if there were Disney canon edits of the original trilogy to be released,
Right.
that Han, as Chad said, Han would shoot only.
They would restore it.
I think, which is very interesting to think about. Disney Han shoots only.
Well, it's also funny to have Lawrence Kasdan kind of write a fuck you to his old buddy George.
Well, yeah, but you know, at
I
this
would
point,
bet money that there's somewhere in those contracts between Lucas and Disney that they can't touch the original trilogy. I bet put it in there.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I still think we're going to see the originals eventually.
I think we'll
hope so.
see that. Yeah. But back to Chewie. I was glad to see Chewie. We finally get to see Chewie be scary monster Chewie. Like, we've kind of always heard about it, and we've heard threats, what he'll do, but you've never really seen what Chewie can do until
He did rip a guy's arms off in a deleted scene in Force Awakens.
Oh, really?
He actually ripped off Unkar Plutt's arms in Force Awakens. In
Oh,
a
my
deleted
gosh.
Scene. Because he shows up at Maz's, but they decided that 45 coincidences were too many, so they kept it to 4. But in the deleted scenes and in the novelization, I believe there's a scene where Han, because remember Chewie's working on the ship,
Right.
he comes in later. Unkar Plutt is there because apparently, not only are the First Order and the Resistance looking for this stupid little droid, they're looking. He's coming too, and Chewie finds him, and he's like threatens Rey or something, and he just rips his arms off. So
I'm
they've
sure
been dying.
I'm sure Unkar Plutt had a tracer on the Falcon too. I mean, there've got to be like 50 tracers on that thing.
No, you can't track things through space. So they have a you can't track things through hyperspace, no matter what Leia says in 2 different movies and 2 different things. But they have. Listen, again, I see all the problems with Last Jedi. I just enjoy it. So they have a so they've been dying to actually show Chewie rip someone's arms off.
Oh, yeah.
For years.
And
Because we
again,
never got to see it.
Disney are the ones that did it.
Yes.
So anybody
Yes.
who's doubtful about Disney's commitment, like if Disney ends up with all the Fox stuff, don't doubt that we're still going to get filthy Deadpool movies. Because their interest is making money and entertaining people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and they will. So we meet Chewie, but then we also meet Beckett and Val and my second least favorite character in the movie.
Oh, no.
With Rio.
Oh, you didn't like Rio?
Oh, yeah, I didn't like Rio either.
Here's why I didn't
liked
like
Rio, but I get it.
I didn't like Rio for one simple reason. Jon Favreau's voice is very distinctive. He is not a voice actor, and all it was fucking Jon Favreau.
Do you want to know
That was Jon Favreau?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to know what's funny? That was my...
I didn't know that.
Really? Yeah, to me, I couldn't see anything but Jon Favreau.
That's what's so funny to me is as soon as Rio's... Well, and you know what, though? This actually reinforces your point because as soon as I heard Rio talk, I was like, oh, that's right. Somebody played this guy. And I didn't remember that it was Jon Favreau, but just the fact that it stuck out so much.
He's not a voice actor, so he didn't create a character. Like, when I watch a Marvel movie, and we won't get into Infinity War because I get beat with sticks with my opinions of Infinity War.
Oh yeah,
but
I don't want to hear it.
But I don't think about Bradley Cooper when I listen to Rocket.
Sure.
Right? He doesn't occur to me. I certainly don't think of Vin Diesel when I hear I Am Groot, but I definitely don't think about that. But all I could see in my head was Jon Favreau, and I just thought I didn't mind the character. I didn't mind. I hated how he talked. I just hated how he talked.
It didn't
was too
bother me, but you're not wrong.
Yeah. So the 2 characters that I disliked in this movie both bought it early, and I was actually felt oddly, disturbingly happy about those.
Did you not like Val?
No, not Val. I'm talking about L3.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So the characters that I liked the least in the movie both bought it, and I had a sense of satisfaction with both their deaths, just made me feel really bad. But it was more as a viewer going, oh, God, I don't have to... Thank God Rio's not in this whole fucking movie. Thank God Rio.
And you know what? I'm with you on that one, because I liked
his
him
death
for the time that he was in it, but you're right. If he'd been in the whole movie, he would have been he wouldn't have been Jar Jar, but it would have been rough.
See, for me, he reeked of the prequels. I was like, oh, no. And I was very glad when he died.
I don't disagree with that either, but it didn't... he just didn't bother me, and I liked... you know what? Honestly, if they had a professional voice actor do his voice, he would have been fine.
I would have liked him a lot more, yes.
Yeah.
Because
I
you're
would've.
right.
I-
It was, even though I didn't realize it was Jon Favreau, it definitely came across as, this is a cameo. Look at him.
Yeah, and this is just a guy. This is just a guy from New York. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't, it wasn't, I don't know. It was a little distracting to me. But so we meet Beckett and Val and Rio in the trenches where Beckett is apparently pretending to be an officer so they can steal a freighter or some kind of cargo ship.
I love
right?
that it was almost a little dash of Kelly's Heroes in the middle of this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And Woody Harrelson, who was so very Woody Harrelson and yet not a problem.
He was one of the people I was worried about, not because I don't think he's a good actor, because I think he's a very good actor, but because he's such a big personality that I thought he could be distracting.
Yes, that was we shared that fear.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it
But I liked
was it was his character. It worked for
It's
me.
a perfect Woody Harrelson character.
Yes.
I mean, there are those great Woody Harrelson performances, like on True Detective or Natural Born Killers, where he kind of becomes someone else, and he's really, really like deep and really good, and he is very good. And then there are those characters that are, just like in Hunger Games, that are just like a perfect Woody Harrelson character. And I liked Tobias Beckett quite a bit.
Yes.
As Han's surrogate father figure. Again, Star Wars, and so him having, so I liked him quite a bit, and I did like Val. I had nothing against Val. I liked
Okay,
Candy.
good. Because I love Val.
My weird thing with Val is, so do y'all read the Star Wars comics, right?
Yes.
I do, all of them.
She's essentially Sana. Like, I couldn't figure out from, like, the commercials, like, she dresses just like her. She looks just like her.
There's a little bit of that, yeah.
And she is very similar to Sana. And I was
remember in the before the movie shot, when they were casting, they were looking for the female lead that ended up going to Emilia Clarke. But originally, a couple of the actresses listed were, one of the actresses up for the role was Tessa Thompson from Thor Ragnarok and Creed, right? And everyone immediately went, she's playing Sana.
Yeah. And maybe I just thought
black,
Sana was going to show up.
Yeah, and we got enough synergy. I think that was probably maybe too much synergy to ask for. We got a lot as it was, but yeah, no, she was. But I liked her. I don't think, as we know, she doesn't last long. So, you don't get a ton of her. But Tandy Newton's a good actor who can do a lot with a little and just make an impression and make you like her.
Is it just Tandy? It's not Thandy?
I think it's just Tandy.
You're probably right. That sounds better, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just Tandy.
I loved her because she was so good at
on Westworld. Yeah.
Well, no, she's great. Yeah, obviously on Westworld, but no, even in Solo, her character does not want to have anything to do with Han at first, and then even though it's a little trite, she hears the story about the girl and she warms up a little bit. Like it was classic, but because it's her, it was believable and you went with it and it worked.
In that moment that I thought was funny, when she asked him about his motivation, she asked about revenge. Whether the first person, someone says, is it revenge? And my first thought was the second Han Solo novel that Brian Daley wrote was Han Solo's Revenge.
Yeah.
So it almost felt like a little shout out, to early Han, to other Legends Han Solo adventures.
Well,
is it revenge?
If there hadn't been so many other little shout outs like that, that would seem sort of just like coincidental. But now, dude,
we gotta fly this to the star's end. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And then Lando, when he's doing his video diary with the reference to the mind harp, was the mind harp of Sharu? Is that right?
Sharu, or the thought cave of Thon Baka, or whatever.
And the giant,
Jesus Christ, his titles are terrible.
The giant crystal skull. That's not a reference to Crystal Skull. It's a reference to one of the Han Solo books.
Yep.
So many little things that are like, yeah, nerds, we know. We're one of you. We get it. Look at all this stuff we're throwing in here because we know you're going to giggle and poke each other when you see it.
Yeah. So we have...
Even the introduction to, what's his name, to Tobias, they mentioned he killed Aura Singh.
Yes.
Not in his introduction, but later.
Was it later? I couldn't remember when it was.
Yeah,
Lando says that.
And he says, well, I pushed her off the cliff. I assume she died.
Yeah, I think the ground did it, or gravity did it.
Yeah.
He says, but yeah, no, I again, just throwing in an Aura Singh reference. Just out of nowhere. Because again, if you're going to say that Tobias did something cool, why make up something new
Right.
when you've got things built into the DNA of the world already, right? So
Okay.
make it be our thing.
Before we get too much further, I've got to throw this one out here. This is my note number 5 or 6 or something like that. I wrote down, not only was Alden good, he was clearly the dominant force of the movie, even in scenes with Donald Glover, which surprised this. And this is my personal opinion, but I was very surprised because I figured any scenes that they shared that Glover's Lando would be overwhelming, and he was not to me.
I have a controversial statement. I think he is no better than anybody else in the movie, Glover.
I would agree with that.
And I'm a huge fan. I've watched the This Is America video 95 times. I'm a community fan. Atlanta is like the best show on television.
But
and I think he was very good in the role. But I know people that were like, I'm only going to see it because of Donald Glover.
Here's the thing, though. To me, Donald Glover, it was actually a testament to his talent that he didn't overwhelm the movie with his Lando-ness.
Or to the script or the edit not allowing him to.
Yes. Well, I think, all of that probably plays a part. Yeah. But I think it's his professionalism, his ability, because he was fantastic. He was very good, over the top, but he wasn't chewing scenery. He wasn't.
Every once in a while, he did something with his voice that was very kind of. He made his voice very smarmy. Yeah, and it was a little too much, I thought. But no, he was very good. I just don't think he was like you're right. I think everyone was on the same playing field.
Yes.
Which I thought was great. Wow.
Yeah, it worked really well. But then what was so awesome about it is we got to see him being very Lando, never overshadowing Billy Dee Williams' performance, never overshadowing anybody else in the movie. But then he got to really sink his teeth in when L3 met her demise.
Yes.
And he really got to act, and it was
also
great.
The Calrissian Chronicles Chapter 4.
Yes. I wasn't too impressed by Sheru.
Oh wait, does he say Sheru in that?
He does.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I missed that.
Yeah, he actually says it.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah,
because one of the first things.
A little love. Okay.
One of the first things I did when I got home was go back and look at that dialogue, because my assumption was it was a reference to the Lando stories.
Crazy.
Because people have complained that the droid in this is not Vufi Ra, or whatever, however you pronounce that. But do we really want a droid named Vufi Ra? I'm much happier with L337, and yes, I know what that is, but who cares?
So we move on to... So next stop is the train heist, right? Like we have our little three Migos out in the desert scene.
Yes.
And then we go straight to the train heist. So what are our thoughts on the train heist? Like not the action. The action was fine, but like the consequences of it. Like again, specifically Val dying.
Did she, like in the moment? I kind of like just went with the action. But I mean, really? Did you need to blow yourself up? And the only thing I can think is that her hope was that they would carry off another thing that's carried from what we've seen in the original trilogy is, and they mention it several times in Solo, is it's really hard to live looking over your shoulder. It's hard to live with a death mark on your head. It's hard, all that. They really pound that in. And my thought. The way that I accept her blowing herself up is that she loves Beckett so much. She's hoping that they carry this job off, and then he can live the rest of his life a free man and no longer have that burden.
Yeah, because it's one last job. That's what I like too. Is it's constantly brought up. This is the last job. This is it.
Well, it's classic outlaw fashion. You know, like I'll go out my own way type of thing.
Yes.
I think there was actually a greater purpose of her death, though, which is we are dealing technically with a prequel where we know that 3 of our leads ain't going to die. Right. And so I think they were trying to set up early on the fact that, we know Han, Lando, and Chewie are going to make it out of this movie, but everyone else is fair game. right?
Yeah.
And so by
Remember
having
Rogue
Tandy
One?
Newton, who's on all the posters and everything, get killed so early,
Well, and that
it was a little bit of Game of Thronesy, like nobody's safe.
That actually
Yeah.
surprised me because as I think we discussed this before too, that we saw the trailers, but at the same time we really didn't know what this movie was about.
Right.
We didn't know the content, and the train robbery figured so prominently that going into the movie, it was entirely possible to me that was going to be the end game,
Yeah.
and instead it's happening in the first third of the movie.
It's kind of what instigates the rest of the whole
Which-
rest of the
which
film.
is-
Like, the
which
film
is-
doesn't really, the story doesn't start until after the train.
Yeah, which
really.
is fantastic. Like, I was so happy when they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit, they're on the train. This isn't even the thing. We don't
Well, it
even know
also
what the thing is."
It also serves the purpose to bond Han and Beckett more.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's all Beckett's got left now is Han and Chewie.
But do
So,
we feel
like,
that Beckett brushed off Val's death a little easily?
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever.
But, I don't know. I mean, look at Leia's reaction to Alderaan, 2 minutes later.
yeah,
So,
you're right.
I mean, it's an adventure movie.
Yeah.
Every
and I
single
kinda
Fast and Furious movie, every single chase scene should end with them going, "What the fuck was that?" Like, can you believe what we just did?
Right,
Like,
right.
if I'm watching that trailer. I don't know if you got the trailer for Skyscraper in front of this, the new
Oh
Rock.
God.
Looks
Yeah.
terrible. But, like, every moment of that movie, there is at least one funny moment in that trailer where he climbs on this giant crane to jump on the skyscraper, and Nev Campbell asks him, "How did you get up here?" He's like, "I jumped off a giant crane." She's like, "What?" Like, that should be every scene in an adventure movie. Like, they should have one set piece, and the rest of the movie should be them going, "I can't fucking believe what happened." Like, what?
Real quick, we've got to mention the fact that Val brings up Bosk.
Yes,
Oh,
that was
yeah.
my list of references. Yeah, we could have got Bosk for this job.
Yeah.
No, again, just, and to be fair, Lawrence Kasdan wrote Empire Strikes Back, so.
Sure.
Should have got Dengar. Been a lot better.
He's better on a swoop, at least he used to be. Sorry, probably too, that's probably too
My
soon.
feeling with Beckett, though, is I wonder how many Vals there have been. Like, he seems like a guy that, yeah, he's in love with Val right now, but there's probably been like 8 Vals throughout his life that die and go away. And he just
yeah.
moves right on.
Yeah, you know what? And with the way his story plays out, that's a very good point.
Trust anybody.
Yeah. Well, by the end of the movie, he's turning on Han. He's telling Han, "Don't trust anybody." Like, with the way Beckett's character at the time, it seemed like Beckett moved on a little quickly, but maybe that's actually foreshadowing to the truth of his character.
Well, it's
Yeah.
also life in this part of the galaxy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's rough.
People fucking die.
Shit's
It's-
tough
it's
on the
like,
rim.
It reminds me to that line in spoilers if you're one of the 6 people that haven't seen Black Panther. But when Killmonger goes back and sees his dad in the past, right, and his dad says, "No tears for me," and he goes, "People die." It's like there's just this attitude of, in this world, this life we live, people just die.
Yeah.
And I almost think Beckett has that. Yeah, I loved her. We would have had a good time, but I'm a survivor, right? And I move on. I move forward. Because right now, and the other thing that's pressing on him now is like, now I'm fucked.
Right. What am I going to
Because-
do now?
Right, now I'm fucked because burn victim Paul Bettany is going to try to kill me.
Is that burn, or is that some kind of like slashing
know. It's
thing?
slashing, I guess. Yeah.
I have a theory on him. We'll get to it at the end.
Okay.
Am I right during that scene too? When Enfys shows up, do they call them the Cloud Riders? Like, are the Cloud Riders now in canon?
I think they just call them Marauders.
Yeah, I think they just said Marauders.
Okay.
And I don't think it was Marauders as a title. I think it was Marauders as a descriptive term.
Can we go ahead and get out of the way? By the way, Enfys Nest, good character, terrible Star Wars, traditionally good.
Traditionally terrible Star Wars.
Terrible Star Wars.
Can we also mention that Two Tubes from Rogue One?
Yeah, we
part
find
of
that
her
out
game.
later. Yeah. And also, technically, Warwick Davis's character is his same character from Phantom Menace.
Which is fine by me. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. That guy later went on. And I thought about Ryan actually when that happened because I was like, oh, these guys are part of the Earth of the Alliance too.
Yeah. So, Did they say which two tubes that was? Because there's two of them.
Yeah,
one of them dies.
It's
Bendrick and Eldrick or whatever.
Yeah, it's vague. Yeah, we know.
Okay.
It's one of them, but you know, if you have two tubes, you've got them both. They definitely. I said I liked how the one capper I would give to the train scene that I thought was it ends with Han dumping the cargo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a common trend for him, apparently.
Right.
Like if it's between his life and the cargo, he will dump the cargo.
Well, and that's the thing is he had to dump the cargo, and the film illustrated that they would not have made it if he hadn't dumped the cargo.
Absolutely, but at the same time, Beckett wouldn't have.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's what gets him in trouble with Jabba down the road, right? Even I get boarded sometimes. Do you think I had a choice, right? And it's just part of, you know. And even I think Lando even talks about jettisoning the hyperfuel when they're going through the when they're doing the Kessel Run. Which we'll get to the Kessel Run, but like I think he there's references to that, but I like when Han was like, I'm going to dump, he's like, don't you dare. And I'm like, oh shit, dude, you should learn this lesson early because Jabba's going to fuck you up for this. So we hit the train job, and then we go to we have this movie's cantina scene, right?
Yes.
I did not care for the music. Did y'all like that? No, I didn't like her song singing.
Oh, that didn't bother me.
I mean, I'm not going to bump it in my car, but
right.
You know, it was fine.
Well,
you know,
we're never going to get anything as outstanding and memorable as well. I guess they're probably not Wormcase and Mad About Me anymore, but we're never going to get anything like the original Cantina music.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lapti Neck.
Yeah, well, partially because...
But even Lapti Neck's pretty lame.
We heard that stuff when we were kids, and we'd never heard anything like it before.
Yeah.
And now, what do you do? What's the modern equivalent of that? I don't know. But this didn't bother me.
It's their attempt to do an alien song. It's fine.
It didn't bother me.
But
I like
the fact that it was like scumbags hobnobbing with Imperials.
Well, and I liked to specifically about the song. I liked the little guy in the glass bubble with the deep voice. Like that tickled me. I liked that.
Yeah. No, I didn't mind it. It was silly, but these movies should be silly. And then, of course, we get the reveal that, hey, look, Kira's here.
Yeah.
The girl that Han left back home 3 years ago.
And I like that the movie didn't belabor it. Like, she shows up, and Han's so excited to see her, he doesn't really think about it. And she is very obviously sort of maneuvering him. Like
a little bit. Yeah.
She's not saying, "Hey, here's what happened to me." She's being not deceptive but evasive.
But she's also ashamed of it, though.
It is very clear to the audience that, and she says this later, that she knows more than he does. But from the moment they reconnect, I think as an audience member, you're like, "Oh, she's at a different level from him right now. Something else is up."
But she's also a little ashamed.
Oh yeah.
Of who she's become. She doesn't like this guy who knew her back then, seeing her who she is now. You know, she says later, if you knew about me, if you knew things, the things I've done, you wouldn't look at me the same.
But she's also not. You know what? I don't know that ashamed is the right word. I feel like she wishes she hadn't had to lead the life that she's led.
Yes.
But she knows she had to do what she had to do.
Well, because when they're leaving Corellia, she says something about one of her fears is being snatched by Crimson Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we find her working for Crimson Dawn.
Right. That's exactly branded by Crimson Dawn.
Right. So it implies she's had a rough road.
And I'll tell you what, the way that they slowly kind of reel out, because first you see the brand and you're like, oh, she's property of Crimson Dawn.
Yeah, she's a slave or whatever.
You don't, right. She's beholden to them, but then it slowly unfolds exactly where she is in the organization, and I really enjoyed that they kind of slowly fed that out to us.
Seems less of a brand and more of a gang tat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then we go into what? Beckett's office, right?
The Easter Egg Palace.
We go. Yeah, absolutely.
Are there Easter eggs in there?
Not Beckett's office. What's his name? Paul Bettany.
Oh, sorry.
Boss.
Dryden Voss. So we meet him, and I love that he's a different kind of Star Wars villain. Like, I loved how touchy-feely he was with everybody. It was so creepy.
He was.
Yeah.
He like put his hand on Beckett's shoulder. How are you doing? Are you okay? Like, he touched everyone. And it was, I've known off-putting guys like that who use their physical presence as kind of like a control type thing.
Yes. Intimidation.
Yeah.
I'm very glad they changed him. Have you read what was originally shot for him?
No, So
originally,
an actor, right?
Fat Scottish guy.
It was a guy, like there was a cat almost. So he looked, I guess they said
geez.
like a feline face, and
Jake Sully. Okay.
It was very weird, apparently.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably better.
Scarry things that got read when he got mad.
I liked him. You're right. He's a different villain for a Star Wars movie. What I didn't like is he's not a different villain for any other type of movie. Again, like that goes to that, like, I don't think the DNA of it's 100 completely original. You know, like I did like him, but like he wasn't.
I'm okay with that though. Like,
oh, I'm not. Yeah, it's not a complaint. It's just it's the thing that keeps the movie from being. You know, it's. I think it was a conscious decision to tell a very conventional movie.
I think so, and I think that's okay because.
Sure.
I have discovered when Star Wars gives me what I want, I enjoy Star Wars more.
And that's always going to be the case. I just think that, again, in this case, he was good. I didn't think he was stand out to me. Like he was, I thought he filled his role perfectly.
But should he have been standout? Because the idea at the end of the day is that he's just a cog in this organization.
I think he's more than a cog. I think he's, he's.
But that was the thing. Like
he's Sidious to her Vader.
But he's not, because it turns out Maul is the Sidious to his Maul.
She's more of Dr. Aphra.
Because they have. Well, they say in the movie, and I can't remember who says it, but there's always someone else.
She says that everyone answers to somebody.
Yeah, or as and I have to admit I cribbed this from somewhere online, but I love it because it carries through the saga. Qui-Gon when they're on when they're on Naboo says there's always a bigger
fish. Always
a
bigger fish. Yeah.
I mean, they're carrying that through here. So, like,
they are.
Yes, he is to an extent the big bad of the movie, but at the same time, there's always a bigger bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah, and they do drop that hint in, and we'll get to that big reveal. But they do drop that. She does, he does mention, my employer or whatever, and then she mentions later, even he answers to somebody,
Absolutely.
So they do drop that in. No, I enjoyed the character. I just, there was nothing that like made me. He didn't stand out to me. And again, you're right. Maybe he shouldn't. But he is the villain of the movie.
They put their wacky, over the top Star Warsy villain at the beginning on Corellia, which we totally glossed over. What's her name? I can't remember.
Lady Proxima.
Loved it.
I was a little unsure, but
the thing is. That is a low-stakes situation at the opening of the movie that Han is going to get out of, so we don't have to take that villain as seriously. So you can do something like make her a giant millipede with fucking body jewelry all over.
And what are the odds that Disney's two biggest movies of the year, they came out pretty much within a month of each other, have a female villain named Proxima?
You're right. You're totally right. Holy shit. That's hilarious.
If I had to put money on it, I would say clicking the fake thermal detonator with his mouth and then her calling around on it. I bet that's Lord and Miller.
You're probably right. Yeah. That and the stuff with Lando's capes.
Yeah. Although I did like that's a custom piece.
That's a big thing in Last Shot, though, in the book.
Oh,
they talk a lot about the capes. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I liked that he had a cape room.
And I loved that she was in there trying his capes on. Like, that was That was
Well, she wears one later.
Yeah. And that was a very... it brought forth the humanity of the characters in a way that even the original trilogy sometimes didn't.
She's the most human, and I said I like her in the movie, but that's the moment where she lets her guard down the most, is in that scene.
Can we really quickly go ahead and say that... I'll say. I was very concerned about Emilia Clarke's actual acting ability, because I feel that she's very good at being Daenerys.
Yep.
But I have not seen her in anything else that she's been very good at.
Yes.
But I loved her in this, so I feel like, okay, it's okay for me to like her as an actress and not just as Daenerys now.
I liked her in this quite a bit. I shared the same thing. I think one of the reasons she's good as Daenerys is they know what lanes they can write her in.
Sure.
They know her. I don't mean to sound insulting. They know her limits, and
she came
she's good at certain
right
things.
out of school, right?
Yeah,
yeah. They pulled her like right out of school.
Oh, she was very young. She was very young. But yeah, I liked her in this movie a lot. It helps that I liked the character a lot.
Yeah.
But there's just a cute moment in the cape room where they start to say something at the same time. It almost feels like a rom-com for a second.
Yeah.
And it felt very human and like very sweet between the two of them. And while yes, she is playing him to an extent the whole time, I still don't doubt her feelings towards him.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
They're still there. When he says at the end, you have a soft spot for him, she does.
Which is what leaves me, and we'll get to it, but what leaves me to question if she really did betray him at the end, or if we didn't see the whole picture, or Han didn't see the whole picture.
We'll find out in a novel, not in a movie, probably.
Yeah, you're probably right. So let's move on. Unless this Boba Fett movie is technically a sequel to Solo, but
right.
That's a discussion for another day. So we meet Lando. They recruit Lando because Lando is so enthused with the fact that Beckett killed Aura Singh, who Lando apparently owed money to.
Well, no, they get Lando to join because Lando's broke. Because they have the card game, we skip the card game, where we think, okay, here's the moment, right?
Mm-hmm. But Lando uses the skifter.
And then Lando cheats.
Right. So he's not broke.
But he sees Kira, and she goes, I thought you were retired. He's like, things change.
Right,
like, that to me was an indication of, I still need money. Like, I'm not...
Capes are expensive.
Yeah, you're right. His claim was he did it out of... He would do it out of gratitude, but you're right.
Right, but he was very obviously like, but then they barter about his percentage. Right?
Well,
and his ship got impounded.
The ship has got it's got the Star Wars equivalent of a boot on it.
It was funny to me the second time through. I didn't realize when he says, "I keep my ship in a secure place." I didn't realize. No, he doesn't. It got impounded.
Yeah.
They're breaking into the police impound yard.
Yeah.
To get his ship out. It didn't hit me till the second time through that no, they were stealing the Falcon back because he was up to his ears in debt.
Overall, L3's character didn't bother me. I felt that some of what they did with her was a little heavy-handed, but that scene of her, I see you looking at me, don't do it, that was, that might have been Lord and Miller as well.
Yeah, that I didn't get. Let's, while we're talking L3 real quick, how comfortable were you with the fact that there were more sex jokes in this movie than there have been in every other Star Wars movie combined?
They weren't too overt.
But I'm not talking for kids. They're gonna be over the head of kids. I get that. But even for me, who is not a prude, it just. I don't know. Every once in a while, I was like, we really need to make a mention of Lando's prestigious.
I am a prude, and where some things are concerned.
Right.
And none of it got even when Kira was asking L3, how does that even work? It's because that's a double. It could just mean how would the romance work, but
it does.
Even though we know what she meant.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about
different
how
levels.
Lando is depicted as pansexual in this film.
Well, whatever.
Which is not. Because remember, it is interesting that she, K3 also, or L3 also tells Lando to stop flirting with Han. Right? Like she even says, stop flirting. It's
if the fact that he is fine, the fact that a deal is being made of it is dumb.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's just interesting to comment to look at because again, I don't think it's that blatant. I think it's more subtle, and I don't even think it's that intentional. I think it's just Lando just digs everybody, whatever.
Yeah.
But I did find her character to be a little grating. I wish she was less on the nose. Can I get you anything? Free rights, equal rights. I was like,
yeah. But at the same time,
also saying that to a black man felt a little funny.
Well, they're in a galaxy far, far away. That's
true.
If she'd said it to Chewbacca, it might have been a little off-putting.
Right.
No, you know what? And it's funny because I lay slightly to the right of where you are.
Yeah.
And her character didn't cause me any consternation. Like at times, I thought she was a little abrasive, but I never felt like, oh, here we go.
Like as someone who has, in fact, been labeled a social justice warrior in my life, usually derogatorily by people online.
Sure.
I almost felt like it was. I guess that's probably why I liked her less because I was like, "You're making fun of it. Are you making fun of me for caring about whether it was the other way, where it was like she was so annoying that it was like, oh, look how silly it is that this droid wants rights, and I don't think that's what it was. I just felt like she was a little too on the nose at times.
I took it.
What I'm curious to see is it reminded me a lot of how the Harry Potter movies or Harry Potter dealt with, the House Elf Revolution and all that mess.
Right.
In this movie, it didn't tie into anything else. And I wonder if in the book it's going to tie in more. If
it's just there to lead to her death.
If there's going to be some other connection somehow.
All I know is I have to make this shout out right now. The Casket Creatures' newest album, Return to Wolfton, features a song called Robot Revolution.
It does.
And it could not be more timely. I can't wait. I don't think Ryan has seen the movie yet, so I'm like dying to get that reveal from him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she was a little grating. I was fine, but again, I was okay when he got killed.
But I love...
Well, one thing I hate, she's awesome in Last Shot. In that last book that came out, I really liked her. I was really looking forward to seeing her, and then I was kind of let down.
I don't think I liked the way she walked was a little overly exaggeratedly feminine.
How do you feel about her design?
I don't like the legs, the weird oval.
Yeah. It reminded me oddly of when Paulie made his robot talk like a woman in Rocky IV. Where I was like,
we're going to do that podcast one day.
One day we're going to talk Rocky IV. And I know I want to do my podcast, but one day we'll talk some Rocky IV. And the first topic will always be, did Paulie fuck that robot? And
that topic will be wrapped up quickly.
And the answer is yes.
Yes.
So the topic should be Paulie totally fucked that robot, right?
The discussion is how he fucked that robot.
Right, exactly. Don't worry, it works. It works. I just thought the way she kind of sashayed and stuff, I get it. Lando's a playboy. He would want a female-sounding droid. All that makes sense to me. Her personality is great on me a little bit. It's fine. It doesn't hurt the movie for me. It was just another character that I was glad when she got blown to shit. That's all. So it's fine.
So we're aboard the Falcon, whatever you want to call it. Yep. We're en route to Kessel.
Yep.
And they mention the Maw.
They do.
Which is from the old expanded universe. The Maw is the collection of black holes, right?
Yes. The Kessel Run is the Kessel Run, and I like the fact that they kept the spirit of the parsec idea without doing exactly what the books did with it.
Yeah.
As far as that, but the Maw is a cluster of black holes that around Kessel.
And in this one, it's just one big, massive. I think they call it a gravity well.
Yeah, because they don't have Stephen Hawking in their world to coin the
phrase. Which is fine. So we get this really nice visual of, because in my mind, in the old expanded universe books, they often talked about the hyperspace lanes and just trying to visualize how have they marked these safe routes through space, And to actually see this giant gas cloud or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Maelstrom or Nebula.
Yeah.
I liked when they were going in. It actually showed, because we still have to get to Kessel, but when they're getting to Kessel, I liked it. It did show it was a series of micro jumps.
Yeah.
That they had to jump from kind of beacon to beacon.
Yep.
Yeah,
to get through. I thought that was cool and way more detail than we even necessarily deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. They could have just popped in at Kessel and we would have been like, okay, here we go.
But it is necessary to explain why him doing it in 12 and the dangers of it. It is necessary to explain that it's difficult to get in and out, that you have to take this long route. You do have to explain that in order for the rest of it to pay off.
So we have to speed things up.
Yep, sure.
So we get to Kessel. We've kind of already talked about the robot revolution. The Wookiees get free. The robots just kind of meander around.
I love when Chewie hit that dude and junked him right up to the ceiling.
Yes. We get
when Han gives him the staff and he goes and just slams him right up into the ceiling.
The Pikes look like the Pikes. Like, that's what they should look like. I was glad to see them.
Look good.
Chewie kills some fuckers in this movie.
And
he does.
There's even more kind of bureaucracy failing is basically how they get away with the whole Kessel thing.
Well, that's the Pike Syndicate that ruled Kessel, and that's I don't know if it's technically expanded universe, but that's from other sources.
That's in canon. The Pikes are a big part of Clone Wars.
Because the Pikes
are part of the Shadow Cap.
And they killed Sifo Dyas as well.
Yes.
They're responsible for the death of Sifo Dyas, the Jedi Master who ordered the clone army or whatever. And, they kind of, Crimson Dawn was new, I do believe.
Right.
New creation. Although Crimson Dawn, Black Sun, not that far off from each other, honestly.
Which makes sense for the end of Clone Wars. We'll get to that part.
Yeah,
so,
we'll get there.
That's when we'll start cutting deep.
I'll admit, I've been waiting my whole life to see Kessel. I don't think it was overly impressive, but it was fine for the story.
Well, it's a mining world. What is it going to be?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I guess I mean, and again, one thing we'll talk about when we get to the box office of this movie and the struggles it's having is part of the reason it's having struggles is that this movie cost twice as much as it was planned to.
Yeah, well, as it should have.
The reshoots. Because of the reshoots. Like,
right, exactly.
It was supposed to be like a $150 million movie and it ended up being a $300 million movie because of the reshoots, right? So it was meant to be a smaller film.
So prior to the movie coming out, we had discussed, okay, we see this pristine, beautiful Falcon in all of the trailers.
And
how in the world can it look like what we see in A New Hope in only...
Well, I had no doubt that Han and Chewie could fuck that thing up.
Well, here's the thing, though. In only the 15 or so years that pass, if even 15, between Solo, 10 or so years, decade-ish, that passes between Solo and New Hope. How can they do that much damage to that ship? And one of my thoughts had been, well, maybe Han just sort of lets it go because he knows it's going to piss Lando off. Little did we know
that he jacks it up right out the gate.
Black hole.
But it works because it helps sell the magnitude of the Kessel Run and the way that they had to do it.
Yeah. The Maw literally strips the Falcon to the point where it looks like the Falcon.
And my favorite shot of the entire movie, favorite shot of any movie I've seen this year, is the Maw with the giant space Cthulhu creature with the Falcon. Like, that side, orgasmic 70s side of a van heavy metal shot.
It was like a Monster Magnet album cover.
Oh, yes. Fucking badass. I just sat there in the theater just like, who's responsible for putting this on the screen? And it's got to be Ron Howard.
Now, how do we, we've been waiting for 41 years. What did we think of the Kessel Run?
Oh, dude.
After 41 years.
Look, in my head, the Kessel Run was Han driving the Falcon really fast through space.
Right.
This went far beyond what my personal imagination had ever imagined the Kessel Run would be.
I think it's fascinating that it's the first time that he flies it.
Yeah,
that he does.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's the first time he ever flies it, and I like that they gave it. That was one of the moments from the trailers that I loved as well, which was, everyone comments on the 190 years old, you look great line, which is fine, but is when he goes, we need to reroute auxiliary power to the deflector shields, and Kira looks at the controls and goes, yeah, we do, and then Chewie takes over, and again, the score by John Powell, which I did like very much, but at that moment, he hits it real hard, but the fact when Chewie sits down in that co-pilot seat,
we
get a little bit of the music, and he hits it hard, but it still worked for me. Even though I knew what they were doing, I knew they were manipulating me to go look at this moment, but it still was awesome to see the two of them side by side in the Falcon.
And the fun part is that, to a certain extent, because that whole Kessel Run claim has always. We've never really known, is that true? Is that Han just full of shit? And little column A, little column B? Because
if you round down.
He's got, right. Well, and also he's got the assistance of L3's navigational brain. It's not like he did it on his own.
No, he's got Mickey Knox in the back juicing up the engines with some fuel.
A lot of factors went into his claim that this ship made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. And
he's still rounded down.
Yes. Yeah.
as he tells Chewie.
I love that it's still amazing that they did it, but even then he still has to embellish.
Yeah. Now, here's a question for y'all too. How do y'all feel about L3 being the Falcon, essentially?
That's fine. I think it's interesting because 3PO later on mentions it's a weird throwaway line.
Talks about the dialect, yeah.
Well, it's always been in stuff that the Falcon had a couple of droid brains running it, and that's what made it such a mess. What's made it so powerful, but also such a mess.
Yeah.
And so I like the fact that L3 is the first droid brain download. I like that was the saving grace to the character to me, honestly, was that she, one of the reasons the Falcon's so great is that it's got this nav computer that's better than any in the galaxy, as Lando said, right?
Its memory was never wiped.
Right, and it's got this droid brain in it, and it also, she's temperamental, so is the Falcon. Right,
yeah.
3PO says in Empire, I don't know where your ship learned to communicate, but it speaks in the most peculiar dialect. This ship's obviously not very nice to 3PO.
We've got to mention another one of the little nods that happened on Kessel was Beckett's disguise.
Yeah, that was weird to me.
I didn't like that.
Oh, I liked it because I liked the idea that he's got these costumes essentially on the Falcon, and that they just get, whether Lando takes it with him or whether it's still on there when Jedi comes around, that I love the idea that the Skiff Guard costume's on there, the Bausch costume is on there, which I think they've explained in the new canon somewhere.
On Forces of Destiny.
Okay, yeah.
Forces of Destiny did a Leia short with Maz Kanata, actually, and it ended up with her at the Bausch costume.
Okay, but I like the idea that they have, wouldn't you hang on to that stuff?
Yeah, but would he have a specifically Jabba Skiff Guard costume in there?
But that's the thing is, it's not a Jabba Skiff Guard costume, it's a mercenary costume.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. No, I mean, it was fine. It was a little distracting to me, but I didn't care.
I might could buy it a little more if maybe in the book or somewhere else they say that Beckett brought that with him, because he specifically talks about
I'm gonna get the gear.
The Hutts, that he's going to go work with the Hutts later.
Sure.
And so maybe he already has it.
See, that's the thing though, is the only thing telling us that costume's native to Tatooine is the fact that the only place we've ever seen it is Tatooine.
Did no one else look like Lando at Jabba's palace?
Nobody else had that specific look. As a matter of fact, if you look, because I'm turning around right now and looking at Jabba's palace action figures, and the Niktos sort of dress a certain way, but they all look very different.
Okay.
Nobody else had that Lando get up, and so to me, it's a goon for hire get up. It's not a Tatooine Palace Guard get up.
One thing I'd like to mention while we're on the Falcon and doing the Kessel Run one little nit. Han in New Hope says that he had the smuggler compartments installed.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
So that was a little glitch for me.
But again, Han says a lot of things.
That's true, and I kind of like the idea when he says, "I made a lot of special modifications myself." True, you did.
Right,
you
right.
did. And obviously, they tore off the radar dish, which is now a thing. He lost the lower gun, which leads to them installing the quad laser cannons.
But even
that they're
stuff
gonna be putting on the Falcon,
even stuff like the smuggling compartments that Lando had put in, I mean, I totally buy that Han would take credit for those.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It was something that just stuck with me when was like putting them in, and I'm like, I specifically,
Right.
Shockingly, I have a photographic memory for every line of dialogue in Star Wars, and of the first 3 films, and so I know Han says he put them in himself.
But of course he would say that.
He
Yeah,
did.
but you're right. Yeah, it's possible.
I would have liked to seen the wet bar that was mentioned.
Yeah.
I got a little tickled though, like seeing the bunk.
Yeah,
because
that
that's
was
the bunk that Luke is in at the end of Empire,
Yeah.
right? When he's wounded, and things like that. So I thought, we got to see not a ton. One thing I would love to see one day is the actual cargo hold of the Falcon.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We've never actually been in the cargo hold.
I would like to see a side-by-side of the Solo Falcon versus the New Hope Falcon, because we got the room with the Dejarik chess table and all the familiar parts, but it looks so very different. Like I would love to see all the, and I'm sure it'll be published in like one of the visual dictionaries or something. All right, we got to keep moving.
And what happened to the Cape room?
We've got a lot of movie left,
Okay.
and
so they do
only a little
Kessel run in, let's say, approximately 12 parsecs,
yes, 12-ish.
give or take.
And then they make it to whatever the planet is that they're going to process the coaxium.
I knew it was going to come up, and I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I can't remember either. And I thought about it today. I was like, I need to look that up, but then I didn't care enough.
I just saw the movie.
It's another desert planet.
It is.
We get there, and there are a bunch of desert people sitting around doing desert things, and then Enfys Nest shows up, and
Yes.
we get the awesome moment of Han once again stepping up with completely unjustified bravado, and Lando fucking leaves.
Well, wait, before we do that, we skipped one of my favorite throwaway lines in the whole movie. When they're looking at the Falcon, and Lando says, "I hate you," and Han says,
I know.
"I know."
Yes.
It's a throwaway line. They don't hit it too hard,
Yeah.
so they don't draw attention to it. But he's like, "Yeah, it's a good ship." He's like, "I hate you." He's like, "I know," and
Yeah.
you're just like, "Okay, I'm down with that. I'm
That's
down with
great.
that."
And it's also a sweet moment because they're kind of accepting each other.
But he also says, "I never want to fucking see you again."
And sure
And then he
enough,
leaves.
and
And
sure
then
enough, oh man, matter of fact, my whole theater, my theater, I don't know how you guys were, my theater responded very well to this movie.
Yeah. I've seen it in 2 practically empty theaters. So I can't.
Man, we were, when we saw it the Friday that it came out, or I guess the Friday after the Thursday it came out, whatever. And our theater was, I'd say, at least 75% full, but a very responsive crowd that applauded at the end. That popped big for the big moments. It was fun.
I was ahead of Lando leaving. As soon as Han said that, I knew that was the next beat. Just as a writer, I'm like, the best joke possible now is for the Falcon to just fly away. I did hit
so
that.
good.
I was ahead of that one by a beat. Doesn't make it any less great.
Because it just whoop.
Yeah.
I love
just
it.
like it got third, and then he comes back. He's like, "All right, do your thing."
And then we get the very interesting reveal that Enfys Nest is or part of yet another splinter group of the burgeoning rebellion.
Those are the Partesians, right? Like, she's a member.
Or at least a proto-member.
They're at least starting it, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did anybody else...
I thought it was a little weird how they played the reveal of her face as if we should know who it was for a second there. Like, the music swelled.
My first thought was that she was Beckett and Val's daughter.
could have been.
Because
See, I thought for a
I was
minute-
like, why is this a big deal? Who is this little girl?
Yeah.
And I was like, is she like their daughter or something? Because I think
It turns out the reveal is just that she's a little girl.
right, which is fine.
I thought for a minute it might have been Saw Gerrera's sister and that she didn't really die. But it was not that.
Yeah, no,
that.
It was a weird moment to me because I was like, please don't let this to be someone coming. Please don't let it be Tandy Newton.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
like-
that occurred to me
like-
too. Like as she was pulling the mask off, that occurred to me.
Yeah, but when they revealed her, I was like, I'm down. I don't think you earned the music cue that John Powell gave you
No.
for this moment.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Because I don't know who that is. And actually, they introduced what was strange about it. Not in mind, but what was strange is they introduced a whole new element into the film in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like the Marauders were
Yeah,
already
yeah.
there, but the film takes a completely different turn for this last. It's not even the last act. It's like the last half of the last act almost, right?
Yeah.
Where it just kind of like all of a sudden you're like, who are these? What? You know, like it was a little strange to like throw this new complication into it.
It was disorienting, but it didn't feel clunky. It just felt very. Oh, I didn't think that's what that would be. And think about how flat the movie would have been without that connection and reveal.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it ends up working well. It just in the moment, it was like, are we really adding this?
Right.
Are we really adding this into the mix
Is
now?
this a bit much? But then it turns out it really isn't. All right, so Han, who has been told, yes, you are a good guy, and who is fighting against that, I loved the way everything unfolded from here on out, because I want to say I've almost untrained my brain to where I sit back and I go along for the ride as much as possible.
Right.
So I knew things weren't going to unfold as straightforward as they seemed, but I didn't totally see everything coming that came. Because the way, and this is maybe partially how good of or how solid of a director Ron Howard is everything played out in a very specific way that led you to believe, like, okay, Han's got the fake coaxium, look at his blaster all concealed up in the lid, he's going to try to put one over, and something's going to go wrong, but I don't know exactly what. Like, it seemed to be playing out in a very straightforward manner.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty sure Woody was coming back. Like,
I almost thought, though, he was coming back to save him. That he would get betrayed, and Woody would come back and do the heroic sacrifice.
The whole movie, I felt like Kira was the one that was going to betray him. Because the way that they played her character when they reconnected, it really felt like, man, she is going to fuck him over so hard. So that was where my uncertainty of who was going to turn on who came from.
And they do play a fine line with that scene between those two, but they do then pull what, again, is a little bit of a cliche, which is Han was ahead of him the whole time.
Yeah, which you know is fine, because the point of this is that Han is learning.
Yes.
So we get a satisfying, like, okay, he's learned. He's not getting duped again, because I personally a little tired of my heroes looking dumb. So I was okay.
He
with
did the audience line too. I heard what you said earlier. I knew what was coming.
Yes.
No, he did. But and yeah, I liked. And then you have that ambiguity during that fight scene.
Yeah. Very well done. And
what side Kira is going to be on.
Yeah, and when she, with the sword, when she turned around, like, you're like, oh, okay, she's going to turn on this guy. But is she? What's happening? Like, it was...
Yes.
Within the moment, they built everything just right, so you had just enough uncertainty to be caught up in it, so that by the time it happened, you hadn't really figured it out.
Yeah. And I think one of the most telling lines watching it the second time is Kira says, I'm going to collect the money so we can get out of here, right? After she kills Beckett, or after she kills Voss, and then says, go get Chewie. And he's like, hey,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
like, you're good. You're gonna need him. She says,
Yeah, yeah.
you have to go save Chewbacca. You're going to need him.
Yeah, at that point, she's not going
You know,
with them.
it's because she cares about him. She wants him to be okay. But she's over these last 3 years has become a different person, has ambitions, right? In this organization, she no longer, while when we meet her, we think she's a slave to the Crimson Dawn. No, she's an up and comer, right?
Here's my question though. Did she leave them there solely to go and take Dryden Voss's position in Crimson Dawn, or to continue to protect Han from Maul?
I think it's both.
Yeah. She doesn't want him involved in it, but she's definitely going to get her money.
Yeah,
I think she knew, though, if she left, they were going to hunt him down.
Right.
And this clears Han and gives him a chance.
Because they mentioned earlier, Beckett even tells him, they don't know who you are. Just get out of here. I mean,
I thought that was a nice moment where he was like, they don't know who you are, you can just leave.
Yeah.
And Han's like, will I still get paid? I'll risk it.
Yeah. That was really good. That was great stuff.
Which I like. But I think, getting down to her betrayal, I don't even necessarily see it as a betrayal. The only betrayal to me is her saying, I'm right behind you. Right? It is the lie of saying, I'm coming with you.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't really screw him out of any money. She lets him keep all the fuel to give to the people, right? She doesn't, she doesn't kill him. She doesn't do that. She just can't tell him the whole truth, and so she lies to him and says, "Oh, we're right behind you." There's almost, because the thing about it is, and it's in her performance, is there's almost a sacrificial element too, right? Where she is. Yes, she's ambitious. Yes, she wants to rise up in this criminal organization. Yes, she's going to go talk to Darth Maul and Dathomir. But at the same time, she is sacrificing happiness.
Yeah,
for that.
And that's why I feel like that's definitely part of her motivation, is to protect him.
Well, I like it. It's ambiguous. It's an ambiguous part of the galaxy. We're not dealing with Jedi and Sith. We're dealing with people who are just we're just dealing with simple people trying to make their way through the universe, as one man once said. And so, so there's no right choices in a lot of ways, right? And so she's making the one that she thinks will do the best for her, do the best for him, whatever. But she also knows by leaving that she's cutting that this love of her life, or this guy that she cares about, is going to hate her forever now.
So Han leaves. Han, see you in a little while, sweetie, leaves. And she calls up the classic Star Wars hologram, and it is none other than our old pal Maul. No longer Darth Maul, just Maul.
Just Maul.
Played by Ray Park, voiced by the excellent Doomsday. The
guy who does it on the show.
He was Doomsday. He was in the Force Unleashed games.
Sam Witwer?
Oh, is it? No, that's not Sam Witwer.
No.
Who is it?
I don't remember.
But anyway.
I don't remember. I think it's the guy who does him on the show. Right?
It is.
It's
the same
it's
guy.
The guy from Rebels.
Yeah, it's the same guy that did him on Rebels.
Sam
and Clone Wars.
Witwer.
Oh, it is Sam Witwer.
Oh, it's Sam Witwer. Okay.
Yeah, it's Doomsday from Smallville.
Yeah, and he was Starkiller.
Yeah, he was Starkiller in Force Unleashed. I was thinking it was the same guy. Okay, so Maul shows up. He's got the Inquisitor lightsaber. I thought this was really cool. I looked at it because I know what's been going on with Darth Maul over the past 5 years, and it makes sense in his story trajectory that he'd be here at this time. Now, there were people in the theater who did not get that at all, and it's funny to me. This is one of my final notes. The different levels of fandom. You've got us, who immediately knew that made sense.
Yes.
And who thought it was cool. You've got people who knew who he was, but the last time they saw him, he'd been cut in half.
Yes.
And then you've got people who probably didn't even know who he was, who were just there to see a new Star Wars movie. Like, how weird is it that level of awareness is so vastly different within the theater?
Well, we hit upon this every time, right? That there are Star Wars fans and there are people who are fans of Star Wars movies.
Yes.
And the reason I have two problems. I love the moment. I got it. I'm a huge fan of Rebel. I think Dave Filoni is the second most important Star Wars storyteller ever, and so I think that that it thrilled me in the fact that this was not just like a reference like having Hera's name or Chopper go by in Rogue One, but this is literally like a plot point, a big moment in the movie that directly comes from the cartoons, right? And while I love that, I had two problems with it. One, I thought we were going to get through this movie without seeing a lightsaber.
Yeah, me too.
So, and I know Ryan had that problem with Rogue One where he really wanted to get through without a lightsaber, and I thought this will definitely be the one, and because it didn't actually make any sense that he would just light up his lightsaber. Like,
no.
why?
Yeah, you're right.
Like,
that was
it was gratuitous, but it was just to like, we got to have a lightsaber sound in here. I don't know.
Well, I halfway wonder if that was to remind people that is Darth Maul, because you couldn't see that
it's not just some other Zabrak.
Yeah, you couldn't see that he was red. So, like, if you haven't seen Darth Maul since 1999.
And my other problem with it is that what you just described, an overwhelming majority of people watching the movie, the last time they saw him, he was dead. And it just led to, at least the people around me, utter confusion and in some points, derisive laughter.
Well, here's the thing.
They thought it was, honestly, the guy next to me said, that's fucking stupid.
If not for the poor reputation of the prequels, which, if you're Disney, I feel like they acknowledge the prequels as little as they can. However,
they're doing more than I thought they would, though.
However, if you're Disney, you as a company looking to monetize this franchise can't look at the prequels as dumb.
No.
You have to look at them as creative material.
I don't even think he thought it was dumb because it was the prequels. I just thought the guy next to me thought it was dumb because it came out of nowhere and Darth Maul's dead, and now all of a sudden Darth Maul's not. And by the way, I know people that love Clone Wars who think it's dumb that Darth Maul's not dead.
Things like that happen in movie series, though. Characters that you thought were dead come back and they make reappearances. Like, it's not unique to this movie.
I will go on the record. I think it was a mistake. I liked it, but I think it took, at least in my limited focus group of the people around me, I felt like it took people out of the movie, and it confused people more than it intrigued people. And while as soon as he showed up, I guessed who it was before he pulled his thing back, because I'm like, criminal organization, shadowy guy, oh crap, this is probably Maul. But I have a suspicion that an overwhelming majority of the audience, some of them might think it's cool, some of them might think it's not, but none of them know what's going on in that moment.
I think time is going to tell on this. So if we move forward, if, it looks unlikely there'll be another Solo movie, but if somehow, even in the Boba Fett movie, say the Boba Fett movie, it expands more on Crimson Dawn and we see more Maul, or there's some more involvement, I think that could ease it a little bit. But just as a one-off scene, I totally agree.
Well,
and I like what they did with, but
nothing in Star Wars is a one-off scene.
These are one-off movies, though. I mean, that's the thing.
But they're not.
These are. I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, I don't know. I felt like, again,
it's not a one-off movie because
Star Wars Chad loved it, right? Like fan of Star Wars Rebels Chad loved it, but I felt like it was jarring, and again, for my further viewings of the movie, it'll be all out great. I love that it's there. I just don't think general audiences. I think it's the fact that I've seen a million articles online explaining that moment to people and explaining why it's possible and what that means that you shouldn't. It's fine if we want a deep dive, but in order for that big of a plot point in the movie, and I know it's just kind of a coda to her character, but if you have to read an article to explain it, that doesn't bode well for the storytelling.
Disney doesn't care about how many articles people write explaining things. 10 years from now, that's not going to be a deep dive. 10 years from now, when there are 2 Star Wars theme parks that have been in operation, when we have that, however much more material has come out,
right,
where Disney is building this. They're tying it all together. It's not a one-off moment. It's part of their canon. And that has been with the comics, with the TV shows, with the movies. But the
theatrical features have their own life.
But Disney, who is launching a streaming service soon that will be expanding this world even more, is trying to make the point, no, this is all connected. You need it all. Buy it all. Buy every bit of it because it's all important.
I would say a majority of the people who go see Marvel movies do not watch the Netflix shows and do not watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
But the Netflix shows and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are not tied into the movies like the Star Wars galaxies are.
We don't know that. We don't know what the Star Wars show is going to be.
We know exactly how tied in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Netflix are to the MCU. And we have already seen how much more connected all the Star Wars stuff is than any of that.
But I'll use an example, though. My father has seen every Star Wars movie. He's looking forward to seeing Solo. You will not get him near the television show. He won't have any interest. He won't read any books. He won't read comics.
They're not going to make any money off your father.
Well, and what I'll say,
they are when he buys his ticket for episode 9.
They're training the next generation
for
all of this.
But when he goes into episode 9, he's giving him his $15, right? Like, it's still...
Right, but nothing they do is going to make your dad go buy a comic or sign up for the streaming service or watch the TV shows.
But I think we're looking too narrow. Like I said, as I tell people, like, if... It's true. But the fact is, if only geeks had gone to see Iron Man, there would not have been Infinity War. Right? There are people who only see... just the Star Wars movies, and that's all Star Wars means to them.
This isn't Iron Man, though. This is Captain America: Civil War.
This is Ant-Man.
This is your audience is being trained.
Sure, but I don't know. I don't think they. Again, it's fine. I don't think it ruins the movie in any way. Not for me, especially. I just think that it was. The nature of who the character was and the imagery in bringing you back to the Phantom Menace, even though he's kind of everyone's favorite part of the Phantom Menace, it still felt like, I don't know, it felt like just a step too far to me. And again, in a way that doesn't bother me, but it wasn't subtle. It wasn't mentioning Coronet or mentioning Bosk in an offhanded line. It wasn't anything like that. It was front and center, big reveal. Big music cue. They even used Duel of the Fates.
That's because Coronet and Bosk aren't part of already established things that can make them more money to a certain extent. And here's the thing. Yeah. Disney didn't know all of the things that were going to go wrong with Solo.
Financially, yes.
So from Disney's perspective, from Lucasfilm's perspective, from Kathleen Kennedy's perspective, putting Maul in this movie ties it into a television show that, yes, is done, but at the same time they have future plans to tie in. Everything's going to tie. I mean, Filoni's going to be doing more.
But his next stuff is going to be in the Resistance era.
And it's also going to be on their streaming service that they want people to buy. They want Rebels to feel relevant and important. And on top of that, if you bring a prequel element like Darth Maul into a current movie that potentially could have been very, very well received, and I think over time it will be, well, maybe that makes the prequel seem a little less dumb over time.
I think the biggest, we said it earlier, Disney's about money. Maul is money.
Absolutely.
No matter what, even if they don't watch Rebels or Clone Wars, remember how many toys he sold, how many T-shirts. People loved that design and loved that character no matter what he did.
And then he got cut in half and they forgot about him.
No, they didn't, though. People were mad that he got cut in half for a long time.
This is that.
I guess here's my problem. You guys are talking about it from a money point of view, and I know they're all about making money. I don't give a shit right now. I'm talking about the movie, and I'm talking about the audience's reaction to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, and in the art form, in the piece of art that I watched today, the piece of popular entertainment that I watched today, I am the only person in the audience that understood what the hell was going on in that moment whatsoever.
So you're saying
none of those people are going to go and watch Rebels.
Star Wars should only make the theatrical movies to appease a broad audience.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that no, they have to appeal to a broad audience. Look what just happened. People didn't want Solo. People didn't want this movie, and they didn't go see it.
Which is the final thing that we have to discuss here.
We loved it, and no one wanted it.
Well, here's the thing. Why did no one want it? Because I saw that claim over and over and over again, and every single time I saw it, I thought, what do you mean you don't want it? Why don't you want it?
They weren't interested.
If it's you don't want it because your assumption is it's not going to be good. Why are you assuming it's not going to be good? And if it's going to be good, why wouldn't you want it? I never understood that nobody wants a Solo movie like that. I saw it over and over and over again, and I never understood.
Friends of ours, certain dork droppings friends of ours said the same thing. He didn't want a Solo movie,
and,
right?
And
I didn't want a Solo movie in the beginning.
But
neither did I.
But why?
Because it felt like we could be doing other things with the stories. But again, I really liked the movie.
Yeah.
I think when they say people didn't want it, it was. I was talking to my friend Aaron about this earlier today, and he brought up a good point about it, I think, and we were talking about the box office. People don't care about Han Solo, they care about Harrison Ford. The love of Han Solo, the love for the character of Han Solo is 99% Harrison Ford. It's fact, right? He is, again, a once-in-a-lifetime movie star. And so I think a lot of people, and it's not about giving the kid a fair chance, it's not about his performance. They only care about Han Solo in the Star Wars movies because he's played by one of the greatest movie stars of all time. And so I don't think it appealed to a lot of people, the idea. And again, I also think it was marketed very poorly.
Yep.
And I know you guys think The Last Jedi had something to do with it. It might have, but The Last Jedi made a ton of money, right?
I don't think that it was... I mean, do I like The Last Jedi? No. But I don't think that it was the quality of The Last Jedi. I think it was the timing of it that may have...
I think it's the
this.
proximity to it.
Right.
I think they're too close together.
We just had a Star Wars movie 5 months ago.
Well,
Yep.
You had a Star Wars movie 5 months ago that, regardless of whether you liked it or not, was a rough experience.
What was it? It was 2.5 hours. It was big. A lot happened.
It put you through the
ringer. It caused a lot of division. Yeah, it's emotional. It caused a lot of division between in the fan base, and it was an experience. And so I think people were still, I do. I mean, I've talked to people who said, like I said, that's out already.
I think Infinity War hurt Solo more than Last Jedi, though.
Infinity War was definitely, and Deadpool. Don't forget Deadpool.
Yeah, I think Deadpool not as much, but Infinity War was a giant, huge thing with a giant repercussions and ending and this and that, and people talked about it. And then the next franchise, geek movie is a smaller story, and that hurt them.
And that's something I had posted earlier on Facebook, and I'll get to my last idea about why is that, and I said this, weeks ago. I think I said about, were people ready for the Star Wars version of Ant-Man, right? Where the stakes were going to be so much smaller than the other films, because he's not going to take down the Empire. We know that. We know the lead characters are going to survive. The stakes are, do they pull off the heist? Do they get out of debt? Do they give the hyperspace fuel to the rebels or sell it to the bad guys? Does Han get betrayed by his ex-girlfriend? Those are such small stakes. It's what makes me, the reason why when people talk about an Obi-Wan movie, as much as I would love to see a samurai movie, Obi-Wan pulling off a Yojimbo samurai movie on Tatooine, they're not going to do that type of movie because it doesn't have any space battles in it.
Well, and
this movie looked too small to people.
That's what Star Wars is going to have to start thinking about, though. Like, if we're going to move forward, are we going to keep having movies about regime change? We're just going to keep having trilogies that involve the government changing?
I sure hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not, but that's what people expect.
Yeah.
Rogue One, we all loved Rogue One. Rogue One could have been a good movie without the space battle. Right? The story could have been told without the space battle.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they put that space battle in there because it's a Star Wars movie. This movie couldn't do that. This movie has such small stakes, and I also don't think one thing that Rogue One had was, again, better marketing than this movie.
Yeah.
But two, the iconography. This movie just doesn't have the iconography that the other films do. People saw Rogue One and they saw walkers and they saw stormtroopers and they saw X-Wings and battles and they go, that looks like Star Wars to me. And they got, some of them went to the movie and said, that didn't feel like Star Wars to me. And we're going like, yeah, it did. But Solo doesn't look like a Star Wars movie. That shot of the Star Destroyer that, that in the clouds, that's super awesome, right? It's only one shot.
Yeah.
It goes away. There's a tiny little TIE fighter chase. The Empire is practically absent. It does not look like Star Wars to people, and it just didn't spark people's the footage. And it is a mundane looking film in a lot of ways, right? It's just a straightforward story set in this world. We love it because we love this world, and I just don't think it caught people's imaginations, and it didn't have Harrison Ford on the cover.
And you know what? I'll say this about your Harrison Ford point. I think you're absolutely right, and that is a point where the general public has to be taken into account. To me, the character of Han Solo, and probably to you guys too, isn't Harrison Ford. It's the character that we've read, and we have Harrison Ford's face in our minds when we're reading the book.
In his voice.
But
his voice.
It's the voice.
But
when I read him in the comics, he sounds like Harrison Ford, though.
But it's beyond.
He is. No, I'm used to
movies.
seeing him depicted in different ways. That's why I was down for this movie when it came. Because I'm used to seeing him depicted by different artists, by different writers, even different voice actors on things like cartoons and video games. I'm used to that. But when he stepped on screen in Force Awakens, people were like, Han Solo is back, and we're going, he's never been gone. But to an overwhelming majority of the people, he has been gone. Right?
I would say Han in The Force Awakens, or Harrison Ford in Force Awakens, is just as much Han as Alden Ehrenreich in Solo.
Nah.
But he's not, though, because he's not Harrison Ford.
Because he's not Harrison Ford. But if you look at it purely from a acting standpoint.
But it doesn't matter. I mean,
no, it doesn't. You're right.
If you remake, if you do a Top Gun prequel, you can't go into it comparing the lead kid playing Maverick to Tom Cruise because Tom Cruise is unique.
Right.
The reason no one wanted to see Shia LaBeouf take over Indiana Jones is one, okay, they don't like Shia LaBeouf, but also they can't see anybody but Harrison Ford and I guess River Phoenix. But
River Phoenix
that's
pulled
hindsight.
it off. But again, River Phoenix is also unique.
And he pulled it off for 15 minutes.
Right. Even going back to A New Hope, I mean, you got to remember, Harrison Ford was a stand-in when he did a lot of the auditions and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they realized no one else can do this. You are Han Solo.
Yes.
That's what it's going to come down to.
If I had the ability to traverse the multiverse, I would watch the version of A New Hope, or the original trilogy, with Tom Selleck as Harrison Ford. Because I think he would be far too sweet. Oh, no, wait. No, Tom Selleck was going to be Indiana Jones, not Han
Indiana
Solo.
Jones. Yeah, no, Christopher Walken, let's say.
But he's still... Selleck is too sweet to be Indy, too.
He said, I had... Yesterday when I had a conversation with people over for Memorial Day, they asked me, did you see the new Star Wars movie? So they released Aware of it, and they know I'm a Star Wars fan. I said, yes. One said, what's it about? And I said, well, it's called Solo. And they go, what's it about, though? I said, well, it's about young Han Solo. And it took, and to be fair, this person they speak English, but they're natively Italian.
Okay.
It took me a good 3 or 4 minutes to explain to them it was about Han Solo, but it didn't have Harrison Ford in it. They could not get their head around that. It just did not make sense to them.
And again, we have to go back to the example I always use, that I work with people who think that Gotham, Batman Returns, and Dark Knight Rises are all the same continuity.
Look, you give Gotham another season, and that's going to happen.
and the thing is, all of that is fine. But when you're putting out a movie in theaters that costs $300 million plus advertising, you need those people that were at my table. You need them to go see that movie.
Well, here's the thing.
And they just weren't interested.
Do you think
they didn't leave my table wanting to see it? By the way,
do you think Disney looked at it and said, we spent way more than we planned. This is not going to earn us what we want. So let's
it's still underperformed. it still underperformed from what they thought they were going to get.
Oh, did it?
It did worse. It did worse than
Oh,
the
yeah.
projections. Yeah, this movie's going to be lucky to what, crack 400 million maybe total. I mean, it bombed overseas. I mean, China, yeah, but
Well,
Star Wars
China doesn't
play in
like
China.
Star Wars.
No, but like it's I just think that how were our interests peaked? We saw the trailers and we saw little moments of Han and Chewie, and we saw, there's going to be Kessel Run and a lot of stuff. That means nothing to most people,
Right.
and most people are who you need to buy tickets.
Well,
Right? It's one of my problems, and I'll get into it in 1 second. One of my problems with Infinity War is it is the first of the Marvel films that 100% does not stand on its own 2 feet.
Well, look at what we've talked about tonight. We have talked probably, 80% about the EU nods and
Yeah, about the
things that
universe.
we love. Yep.
The stuff that makes us giddy. We were giddy at seeing Darth Maul. Like you said, a mention of Bosk makes me smile. That doesn't mean shit to most people. And if the imagery of the film doesn't get but what they saw in Rogue One was walkers and X-wings
Right.
and things that they know. And yeah, everyone knows the Falcon, but
Do
let's be
you
fair,
think
it doesn't even look like the
gotta,
Falcon?
we've got to
Doesn't
land
even
this
look like the
thing?
Falcon.
We've got to land
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Do you think, Chad,
Yes.
could you have cut a trailer from the movie that we got that
Right.
would have caught the public's eye more than what we saw?
No. I just don't think the images are there to get the general populace excited. Like, again, they excited me, but I have friends who are filmmakers who consider themselves Star Wars fans, but they only see the movies, and the ones who are seeing Solo, by the way, are enjoying it. I have yet to run into anybody who hated this movie, right? I have yet to talk to anybody who hated this movie. People are either middling to us who really liked it, right? Yeah. And so it's not that the people are seeing it or not liking it. People just aren't seeing it, and I just don't think the combination of the advertising and being, I think, fairly poor, the reputation of the production of the film, and the fact that here's an unknown lead playing a character replacing a legendary actor.
If we're talking about the general public, they don't know about the production of the film. Let's be honest. They don't know about it.
More of them know about that than know about Bosk. Because it was
I don't know that
it was front page ESPN. It was reported on IMDb. It was reported on CNN when they fired Lord and Miller. Like, entertainment news is news, and so
and I can't speak for the general public anyway. So
Lord, I mean, that stuff is public. I just think personally, I think that did nobody want this? Of course not. We again, we didn't, but then we did. But I just think that people. And I know you guys didn't. People right now, what the public cares about is they want to know what's going to happen to Rey, right? They want to, if they're still watching, if they're watching Star Wars movies, they care about what's happening to Rey. They care about, BB-8 and is Kylo Ren going to turn back to the good side?
Right.
That's Star Wars to them.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point. This is the danger of the intermediate movies.
Did people watch the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles?
Yeah.
Which is why I'm ready for the saga to be done, so we can move forward. And if Kylo Ren does turn back to the light side, I hope Luke's Force Ghost pushes him off a mountain.
I am looking for that. At the same time, I'm worried about it because I think that is Star Wars to people. Like, is the Sith and the Skywalkers to the general audience. And again, I keep pushing this general audience thing, and I don't mean it to appease people. I just mean that these movies don't continue if those people don't go see them.
Right.
Yeah. I think Ant-Man and Wasp is going to also inform Disney a lot how things move forward from here. Because Ant-Man and Wasp very well could be the exact same thing, where people are midway through this Infinity story, and then all of a sudden this smaller movie comes out, and they just don't go.
Yeah. Well, I was actually underwhelmed by the new trailer, but yeah.
Again, I'm excited for it, but it's because I want a nice little palate cleanser after Infinity War, and you and I didn't react the same to Infinity War, so...
No, it is. It's just,
But we can't get into that. We've got to give our final thoughts on Solo.
Sure.
Ryan, final thought on Solo.
I ended up liking it way more than I thought I was going to. I definitely want to see it again. I hate that it's not doing as well because I worry that future saga movies or whatever they're calling them may get kind of pushed back. Maybe we can get Boba Fett canceled. That would be great. We can concentrate on something else. But overall, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I dug it. I look forward to seeing it again. I look forward to owning it. I look forward to seeing more about the production. But my one final thought is, holy shit, Darth Maul doesn't have a penis. Chad, what's your final thought?
I am also disappointed in the box office because I fear what it means for the Star Wars stories in general, which so far have been my favorites. And you guys are just going to agree with this. I think this might actually be, on a technical level, the worst of the 4 Disney movies. Just hold on a second. But it will be the one that I watch the most for the rest of my life. It will be the one that, because I don't think the script is particularly inspired. I don't think the performances are particularly fantastic, right? I don't think the action is superb, anything like that. But it will be the one that I will put on to hang out with friends. It will be the one that is the best, to me, the best hangout Star Wars movie maybe ever made. I just worry, and the last thing I'll say is, if the Calrissian Chronicles is not on that new Disney app, I'll be very upset, because I want the Calrissian Chronicles so bad. And please, Disney, I know this didn't do well, but give Ryan Coogler a Lando movie.
That would be awesome.
He just made you $1 gajillion with Black Panther. Him and Donald Glover have worked together before. Donald Glover worked on Black Panther some. Because in Black Panther, in that movie, Wakanda is a Star Wars planet. He proved he could do it. Give Ryan Coogler a Lando movie, and that'll make me very happy.
Lando is going to have a very carefully selected supporting cast, though, because 2 hours of Lando would be too much.
Sure, it just depends on how you depict them.
Got to have the right people to play off of, I think. Let's get Chevy Chase in there.
That'll work.
Joe McHale, Jedi Knight.
Chevy Chase are absolutely, yes, they're best friends whatsoever. Chevy in no way threw around racist terms on the Senate community.
Not at all.
Not ever.
Well, he'll come back. They always come back. Roseanne even.
Roseanne will not be back.
She will. She will. I predict it now.
Her show won't be back.
Fox will pick it up. It'll happen.
Maybe it'll be a Fox News special. Yeah.
All right, guys. All right. Thank you for.
But yeah, no, I like the movie.
Yeah, we all dug the movie. That's what matters to us, anyway. As far as going forward, we'll see. Hopefully, Disney's realistic about the situation and about Solo's potential, and stays the course with whatever their plans were. Because
I don't want to see another movie with these guys, though. That's the problem. Then we're not going to get it.
I don't know though. Well, we're done. We're done.
Yep.
We have to stop now, so we don't have we've already exceeded the runtime of the movie, so we don't want
to. Indeed. We have indeed. But another 5 minutes, I think we'll get the Last Jedi length. So, all right, cool.
Thank you guys for coming on and talking about Solo.
Yeah, twist my arm, talk about Star Wars for 2 hours.
And we'll be back in roughly 16 months.
We will. And this summer, I still think we should do a commentary on the Ewok movies. Just saying.
Well, dude, you can't have it all. It's got to be Ewok movies or Rocky IV. I don't know which one you want.
I'll think about it.
Figure it out.
I'll be home. I'm going to be home in like 3 or 4 weeks. So.
All right, we'll figure it out.
All right, guys.
Later, guys.
See you. Bye.
It's so weird to me to be having these conversations that I've been having with Chad and Ryan for decades now about Star Wars, except we're talking about current Star Wars that exists now. And yeah, I know we had the prequels, and obviously we discussed those a lot, but we have had, up until now, we have had more years without Star Wars than we have had with Star Wars, or new Star Wars anyway. And it's really, it's wild to be getting together with the frequency that we do to analyze the new thing. And I don't want to disregard Clone Wars or Rebels, but I'll be honest, for us anyway, they don't engender as much conversation as a new film does, or as a new toy line, apparently. So there you go. Anyway, thanks for hanging out and listening to us talk about this movie. That the more I think about it, the more I like it. The more I do I say love? Do I love it? I don't think I can love it yet. It's going to take a couple years and seeing how many times I rewatch it in those years before I know if I love it. But I really, really dig it. I'm very, very happy with it right now. And it's motivating me to collect a toy line that I had said I was not going to collect. So there you go. Enfys Nest Swoop Bike 6-inch Black Series. It's up on Amazon right now for pre-order. And I pre-ordered it, even though I don't have anywhere to put a freaking 6-inch swoop bike. And in just a few months, I'm going to have to find somewhere to put a 4-foot sail barge. Maybe I just need to stop with the Star Wars. Do I stop? Am I done? Should I sell all this stuff? Probably, but I'm not gonna. I love you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Needless Things podcast. You're the best. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, or in the ears of a Trader Vic's employee. Love you, mean it,